After Valentine's Day, the first 10 days of the Lunar New Year had also passed. The residents of Northwood were gradually returning to work. Robert and Susan Wallace were already back at their respective jobs, caught up in the bustle. For the college students home on winter break, the time to return to campus was fast approaching. Kevin and Tessa, whose break had started earlier, were also heading back before Leo and the others. Before they left, the two couples, plus Anna, got together for one last farewell dinner. Over the table, Kevin and Tessa promised they'd visit Berkeley again next semester and insisted that Leo and Claire had to come see them in Portland. "You gotta come too, Anna," Kevin declared, thumping his chest with bravado. "Me and my girl will treat you. We'll find you 10 hot guys to keep you company." After spending the break together, they had all become good friends with Anna. She laughed and raised an eyebrow at Kevin. "That's a generous offer." A sly grin spread across her face. "In that case, when you come to Berkeley, why don't you swing by East Bay Financial? I could introduce you to some beautiful girls." Kevin's eyes lit up instantly. "Holy shit, are you serious?" Before he could finish, he felt an icy wave of killing intent from his side. He immediately straightened up, his expression shifting to one of profound righteousness. "You know what? Don't even think about including me in such a thing. I'm gonna take a man." His rapid change in attitude was a testament to his powerful will to survive. But it was too late. Anna laughed, thoroughly enjoying his misery, and turned to Tessa. "Tessa, you heard him. Your boyfriend has a wandering eye." Tessa smiled sweetly at Kevin. "It's fine. He can have a wandering eye, as long as he doesn't have wandering hands. If he dares, I'll just have to confiscate his equipment." Her smile was gentle, her tone soft, but her words sent a chill down the spines of the two men at the table, who instinctively clamped their legs together. Holy shit, what kind of terrifying threat was that? Anna then turned her gaze to Leo and Claire. "I'll come visit you guys at Berkeley, too. Make sure you treat me right. Food, drinks, a place to stay. I want a suite at a grand hotel." Her tone was utterly shameless. Leo rolled his eyes. "You're really something else. Why don't you just ask for the moon while you're at it? A grand hotel, huh?" He'd have to ask Mr. Chien if his motel had any special trap suites. The kind with leaky faucets, power outages, and a suspicious lack of blankets. A couple of days after Kevin and Tessa left for Portland, it was Anna's turn to go. The entire Wallace family saw her off, with Robert and Susan fussing over her, reluctant to let her go. "Take good care of yourself at school," they urged, "and remember to call your godparents often." In the end, it was Leo and Claire who accompanied her to the train station. Before she boarded, Claire took her hand. "Come visit us at Berkeley. You don't need a hotel. You can stay with me and your brother. We have a room just for you." Anna blinked. That one word completely baffled her. Home? What kind of bizarre noun was that? She looked back and forth between Claire and Leo, as if they were deities. "You two have a home at Berkeley? Is the student housing there that good? They give out condos to dating students now." Leo looked at Anna like she was an idiot. How did someone with her IQ manage to skip 2 grades and get into East Bay Financial? "Your sister-in-law bought it. A small beach house near campus." Once Anna understood the situation and heard the details of the single slaughterhouse, her jaw dropped. The next second, she whirled around, threw her arms around Claire, and said with the utmost sincerity, "Sister-in-law, don't be so rigid about gender. Have you considered dating a girl?" Leo's eye twitched. He'd guarded against every possibility, but he never expected a threat from within. This sister of his was a menace. There would be no more heartfelt goodbyes at the station. He practically shoved her onto the train. Anna departed with a casual wave, dragging her suitcase behind her. They watched her figure recede into the crowd of passengers at the station until she disappeared. Leo shook his head, a helpless laugh escaping him. "She's such a handful." Then, as if remembering something, he turned to Claire. "By the way, now that Annie Cakes is gone, I guess it's just the two of us again." Claire met his gaze, her elegant eyebrows arching slightly. "So?" Leo's expression was the picture of innocence. "Want to go over to your room tonight and review some notes?" The girl nodded, her tone as light and casual as if she were discussing the weather. "Okay." With Kevin, Tessa, and Anna all gone, Leo and Claire's days in Northwood grew quieter. The young couple, however, had no time to feel sad about their friends' departures. They were about to welcome a blissful world for two. Especially with Anna gone, Claire was once again the sole occupant of the guest bedroom. This meant a certain someone could resume his nightly, grandly surreptitious migration from the living room couch. He could slip into her room, slide comfortably into the bed pre-warmed by his girlfriend, and with a completely clear conscience, hold her soft, fragrant body in his arms. And, of course, they would review some very serious topics under the covers. For instance, a study on the sensitivity of the earlobe, French techniques in flexible interaction, 13 applied methods for strawberry cultivation, all rare and valuable texts that would surely be redacted for decency's sake. During the day, Robert and Susan were busy with work, leaving the young couple alone in the house. This led to even more shameless note reviewing. From the bathroom to the living room, from the sofa to the study, and from the study to the kitchen. God only knew where all these notes came from. But in the final days of winter break, the very air seemed to shimmer with the sweet scent of romance. On the 16th day of the first lunar month, just after the Lantern Festival, it was finally time to head back to Berkeley. That morning, Leo and Claire said their goodbyes to his reluctant parents and set off for the train station. They took a taxi this time. The familiar Mr. Joe and his Maybach were nowhere in sight. Apparently, he had already returned to the city. Leo was a bit curious. Mr. Joe left early? Did he have something to do in the city? Claire nodded, her tone casual. Yeah, he left a few days ago. He said it was an emergency. A certain retired Special Forces veteran had been enjoying a peaceful vacation in his hometown, planning to rest for a few more days before returning to work. That was, until a few days ago, when a sudden copy of the Northwood Gazette shattered his tranquility. When he saw the article and the particularly eye-catching photograph credited to photographer Wes Zhang, the pupils that had been resting for half a month dilated with the force of a tectonic shift. He practically leaped out of bed, burst out the door, and sped back toward Berkeley in a desperate, night-long drive. His sole mission: get to his boss before any Northwood newspapers did and destroy all evidence. Along the way, only the Maybach could feel the full force of the veteran's grinding teeth and volcanic fury. Wes Zhang. Who the hell is Wes Zhang? Fine. Just fine. Fuck you, Northwood Gazette. The trip from Northwood to Berkeley was, like the journey home, an overnight train ride. In about half a year, a high-speed line was set to open, which would cut the trip down to 4 hours at most, saving a lot of time and effort. But for a couple in the throes of new love, traveling together, even on an overnight train, was anything but long or tedious. Leo and Claire had once again booked a private sleeper compartment. When they boarded at the Northwood station and found their car, they were the only ones there. The other bunks were either unsold or their occupants hadn't boarded yet. For the time being, the entire compartment was their private little world. Leo stowed their luggage and turned to his girlfriend. Need to get anything out? Claire was focused on admiring her wrist, and she replied, without looking up, Nope. Leo was about to head to the dining car for some snacks and drinks. Want anything? He asked before leaving. The girl, still sitting by the window, shifted her position to continue admiring her wrist. Whatever. When Leo returned with 2 cups of instant noodles, some snacks, and drinks, he set them on the small table in the compartment. Hungry? Want something to tide you over? Her reply was still absent-minded, her eyes never leaving her wrist. Sure. Leo couldn't help but laugh. You've been staring at that thing the whole time. Haven't you seen enough? The girl's eyes didn't even blink. She was completely captivated by the new jade bracelet on her wrist. Never. I could look at it forever. It was a rare sight indeed. The cool and composed Claire Sterling, utterly obsessed with a simple little bracelet. The reason, however, was simple. Before they left home, as Robert and Susan were seeing them off, Susan had called Claire over. From her coat, she produced a jade bracelet wrapped in a handkerchief and carefully placed it in her future daughter-in-law's hands. Then she told Claire with a gentle smile that it was an heirloom of the Wallace family. When she had married into the family, Leo's grandmother had given it to her. Now, she was passing it on to Claire, officially recognizing her as the newest future daughter-in-law of the Wallace family. After explaining its origin, Susan added with thoughtful consideration, Of course, you're still young. A young girl wearing something like this might look a bit old-fashioned. And really, the bracelet isn't worth much, it's just the sentiment. If you don't think it suits you, you can just put it away, or let me hold on to it for you until later. Susan Wallace was still talking, not noticing that the moment she had taken out the handkerchief-wrapped bracelet, the girl's eyes had flashed with an incredible light. Before Susan could even finish her sentence, Claire Sterling displayed a speed that would have astonished even a certain retired Special Forces veteran. Swish! It was a blur of motion, too fast to register. In an instant, the jade bracelet was in her hand. At the same time, her expression had returned to normal. She smiled sweetly at her mother-in-law, looking every bit the well-behaved, virtuous young woman. Not all. It's absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love it. And she added, it's absolutely perfect. 3 absolutelys in a row, each one heavily emphasized. As she spoke, the bracelet that had just been in her hand vanished, as if by magic, tucked away somewhere out of sight. There was no way she was letting her mother-in-law take it back. A Wallace family heirloom, a jade bracelet. In her past life, Claire had heard about this tradition from Susan. The bracelet was passed down from one generation of Wallace wives to the next. Back then, she had grown as close to Robert and Susan as a real daughter and had considered herself their daughter-in-law. But her relationship with them had been born of responsibility and guilt. When she had asked to receive the bracelet, to formally cement her status in the family, the kind couple had shaken their heads and refused. They had accepted her as a daughter, but they couldn't bear to let a good girl like her be shackled for life to the memory of their deceased son. So, in her past life, Claire had never received the bracelet. Now, half a year into her new life, she finally held it in her hands. And, just as Susan had said, the bracelet itself wasn't particularly valuable. But to the reborn girl, its significance outweighed any priceless antique. It was the ultimate treasure. It meant she had their genuine approval. It meant that, in this life, she was truly the Wallace family's daughter-in-law. The moment they got into the taxi after saying goodbye, she had eagerly slipped the bracelet onto her left wrist. And she had spent the entire ride admiring it, right up until this moment. Sitting by the window in the sleeper car, gazing at the bracelet, the cool and worldly Miss Sterling, who had seen countless treasures, couldn't help but break into a silly grin. "You little thing, you're mine after all." Leo had never seen his girlfriend act this way. To treasure a small jade bracelet, as if it were a little girl's most beloved doll. It was less of her cool aura, and more so adorable it could melt your heart. As he watched her, a smile spread across his own face. But the smile didn't last long. He soon discovered that his girlfriend's devotion to the Wallace family heirloom had reached an absurd level. Watching her adorable display, he reflexively reached out to hold her hand. His hand was immediately smacked away. "Leo, question mark." Meeting his confused gaze, Claire said matter-of-factly, "Don't touch it. What if you scratch the bracelet?" He didn't give up. "Then I'll hold your other hand." His hand was dodged again. "Don't," she said. "I'm looking at the bracelet." Staring at his girlfriend, who was still lost in admiration, Leo's face darkened. "So this is how it is. Before you had me, I was your sweet darling. Now that you have the bracelet, I'm just old news. You won't even let me hold your hand." He decided to make a stand. "So now the bracelet is number one in your heart, and I'm number two?" His question finally managed to pull her gaze away from the bracelet. She looked over at her boyfriend and said reproachfully, "Silly, what are you thinking?" Hearing that, Leo instantly felt better. "Right, of course. My position in Bertha Sue's heart is still unshakable." The next second, the girl's casual voice floated over. "The bracelet is number one. The thread of destiny is number two. Blackie the Leo hammer doll is number three. You're fourth." Now, it was a day to remember. On this day, Bertha Sue acquired a jade bracelet. On the same day, Leo Hammer was given a new rank. The engine rumbled as the train sped along the tracks under the night sky. Inside the sleeper compartment, Leo watched as his girlfriend held the Blackie the Leo hammer doll in one hand, while the other, adorned with the thread of destiny and the jade bracelet, was held up for admiration. She was completely engrossed. A dark expression settled on the face of the newly minted number 4. "Is my status really this low? I'm fourth. I rank lower than a stuffed doll that doubles as a footrest." Of course, it was just a joke. Leo knew perfectly well that the only reason these items were so precious to her was because of him. Because she cared about him, she cared about everything connected to him, his friends, his family, and every treasured object that symbolized their bond. Watching her, a warmth spread through his chest, and his gaze softened. But seeing this rare, childlike side of his girlfriend made him want to tease her again. "You treasure it that much? What if someone accidentally bumps into it and scratches it? You'd probably hold a grudge against them for the rest of their life, wouldn't you?" His words made Claire freeze. She lifted her head, her gaze sweeping over him coolly as she spoke. "No, I wouldn't. I don't hold grudges overnight." Leo was surprised, about to praise her for being so magnanimous. Then, she added casually, "Besides, that person wouldn't have a next life to worry about." "Leo, one doesn't need to hold a grudge against the dead." From the quotations of Miss Sterling. The cover features the girl looking coolly at the camera while making a throat-slitting gesture. But Leo's words did serve as a reminder for Claire. Jade bracelets were indeed fragile and easily damaged. To her, this was currently the most precious treasure in her heart. Even a speck of dirt on it would break her heart. She couldn't risk it. She decisively took it off, carefully wrapped it in her handkerchief, One layer wasn't enough. She wrapped it 3 times inside and out, and finally tucked it into her personal handbag. Even then, she didn't feel it was secure enough. She immediately took out her phone and sent a text to a certain retired Special Forces veteran. Get a safe for the beach house. On this train ride, Leo and Claire were quite lucky. Throughout the journey, no other passengers entered their 4-person sleeper compartment. Night quietly fell. After eating dinner on the small compartment table, they chatted for a while. Claire went to the restroom to wash up first while Leo watched their luggage. When she returned, it was his turn. As he brushed his teeth in the train's restroom, staring at his reflection, a plan began to form. Since there's no one else in the compartment, tonight I should try to persuade the sly fox to sleep in the same bunk with me. It wasn't for any nefarious reason. It was just that the last 2 times they'd been on a train, they'd been bombarded with PDA, first by Brandon and Michelle, then by that old couple. It was a matter of psychological balance. Now that they were a real couple, they had to unlock this achievement together. He even had his reasons prepared. Sure, the bunk is a little small, but it's winter. Squeezing together will be warmer. Walking back from the restroom, Leo mentally rehearsed his lines, aiming for a delivery that was both righteous and reasonable. He pushed open the door. He looked up and saw that his girlfriend had already changed and was lying in his bunk, comfortably propped up in the covers, holding the jade bracelet up to the light, admiring it with great interest. Leo, didn't you wrap it up to protect it? What did you take it out again? Claire just noticed his return. Meeting his stunned and peculiar gaze, she blushed slightly, a hint of shyness in her small voice. I couldn't help it. I want to look at it again. That genuinely made Leo laugh. He sat down on the edge of the bunk, reached out, and gently lifted his girlfriend's chin, giving her cheek a light squeeze. Bertha Sue, why are you so adorable right now? The unexpected compliment made her freeze for a second, her lips slightly parted. The next moment, he leaned in and kissed her. Caught off guard, the girl was just starting to get into it when she suddenly remembered. Careful, the bracelet, she yelped, pushing him away. The shove sent him stumbling backward with a thud as his head hit the metal frame of the top bunk. It made a solid, loud noise. Leo. When he came to his senses, he saw his boyfriend looking at him with a wounded expression. Claire immediately looked apologetic. I'm sorry, does it hurt? Is it swollen? Let me see. Leo was still a little miffed, ready to righteously refuse her concern to show that he couldn't be so easily placated. But the next second, a fragrant breeze washed over him. The girl reached out and pulled his head into her embrace, carefully examining the top of his head. And so, the sensation against his face was suddenly, breathtakingly soft. Leo, after repeatedly confirming that he wasn't injured, she let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. She started to lift his head from her chest. As she looked at him, she blinked, momentarily confused. Why is your nose bleeding? Leo wiped away the blood, his expression unchanged. It's nothing. Must have been an internal injury from the impact. Maybe you should take another look. After a flurry of activity, the lights were finally turned off. The sleeper car fell into darkness, with only a small bedside lamp casting a soft, yellow glow. Claire had once again carefully put the bracelet away. Lying back in the covers, she turned to face Leo. Her eyes, reflecting the night light, sparkled as she stared at him without blinking. Leo started to feel a bit self-conscious. Why are you looking at me like that? Her gaze was intense. The bracelet is mine now. Leo chuckled. I know it's yours. Don't worry. No one's going to take it from you. He then heard her next words. So, officially, you're mine too. Leo was still a bit dazed. What? Without the bracelet, you couldn't date me. The next second, before he could react, the girl pressed forward and kissed him. This time, it was incredibly proactive and passionate as a burning volcano. For a moment, Leo felt as if he were being completely consumed by her fervor. Forgetting all his sarcastic thoughts, he plunged into the moment, kissing her back with equal intensity. In a narrow, crowded bunk, the air temperature skyrocketed. The moment grew more and more intimate, until Leo felt like his entire body was on fire, his mouth dry, on the verge of losing control. A soft, pliant body pressed up against him. He heard the girl's cool yet sultry voice, like that of a nine-tailed fox, whisper by his ear. Sir Knight, do you require aid? The next morning, on his way to the train's restroom, Leo wore a refreshed and invigorated expression. His training last night had nearly gone awry, but thankfully, a noble lady had intervened to help him. Second intervention. I wonder if 3 interventions can be combined into a 2-star version of a different kind of assistance. He thought back to the fiery heat of the sleeper car bunk last night and his girlfriend's body, even hotter than the blankets. Even though it was just assistance, it was the first time she had initiated it. He could clearly feel that she had been more active and passionate than usual, like a volcano that had nearly melted him. The memory left him both wanting more and filled with a sense of wonder. Damn it, if I'd known a jade bracelet could bring such benefits, I would have stolen the family heirloom and given it to this nine-tailed fox myself. That would have been a hell of a deal. Still savoring last night's intimacy, he found himself grinning foolishly at his reflection while brushing his teeth. He heard footsteps behind him, and the restroom door opened. Turning, he saw the ethereally beautiful face of his girlfriend. Claire poked her head in, looking around before settling her eyes on her grinning boyfriend. "What are you smiling at in the mirror?" Leo instantly composed himself, his expression righteous. "Nothing. Just thinking about something happy." She pursed her lips, clearly unconvinced, then slipped inside with her face towel and toothbrush, standing beside him at the sink to begin her morning routine. Leo finished first and watched as she ran hot water over her towel. The steam billowed up, washing over her fair, delicate hands. The sight was enough to make his mind wander again. Claire sensed it and shot him another look. Leo immediately averted his eyes, feigning innocence, then continued to stare blankly at her hands. After a moment, a thought popped into his head. My family has some other heirlooms. I could probably get them for you." The out-of-the-blue comment made Claire pause. When she realized what he was implying, a blush crept up her delicate neck. She shot him an exasperated glare. "Pervert, get out." Kicked out of the restroom, Leo obediently walked back to their compartment, still pondering how he could ask his parents about any other family treasures. One heirloom equals one intervention? That's a deal worth making. The train arrived on time. To their surprise, Mr. Joe, who had arrived in the city a few days earlier, wasn't there to pick them up. Leo was puzzled. Claire casually explained, "Mr. Joe called yesterday to let me know. Seemed like he had something to take care of, so I told him not to come." "What's he busy with?" Leo asked curiously. Claire shook her head nonchalantly. "Not sure. When he called, it sounded like he was at a newsstand or something." Not having Mr. Joe there to meet them wasn't a big deal. The couple grabbed their luggage, hailed a taxi outside the station, gave the driver the address of the LNS house, and headed straight home. The new semester at Berkeley started in 2 days, so they still had 2 final, blissful days of winter break to enjoy at the single slaughterhouse. An hour later, the taxi arrived. As he paid, the driver marveled. "This is a nice neighborhood, right on the coast. Great view. You buy this place, kid? You've got talent." Leo just smiled. "It's not mine, it's my girlfriend's." The driver paused. His gaze shifted to Leo, filled with a newfound respect. He shot him a thumbs up. "Well then, that takes even more talent." A heartfelt compliment from a taxi driver, full of envy for the boy living off his girlfriend. Carrying their bags to the front gate of the villa, they saw the LNS wooden plaque was still shiny and dust-free. Both Leo and Claire were a little surprised. They figured Mr. Chin must have wiped it down when he passed by. "We should treat Mr. Chin to a meal sometime," Leo said gratefully. Claire nodded in agreement. "He gets to make the first toast at our wedding." Leo blinked. "Wedding? What wedding? How did the topic jump that far?" They crossed the small yard and opened the front door. The familiar high-ceilinged living room, the familiar furniture, the cozy sofa, and the fireplace. It all had a way of instantly relaxing them. It was a different feeling from being back at their family homes in Northwood. There, they had Mr. Joe, Mrs. Fong, or his parents. Here at the LNS house on the coast, it was a world that belonged only to Leo Hammer and Bertha Sue. Standing at the door, they looked at the familiar scene and naturally recalled all the moments they had shared in this little home. Waking up together, cooking together, studying together, and cuddling on the sofa by the fire watching movies. Leo and Claire looked at each other and shared a knowing smile. It was warm and comforting. Claire stood on her tiptoes, gave Leo a light kiss on the lips, then pulled back, raising an eyebrow at him. "Welcome home." Leo grinned. "What do you want to eat?" "I'll go make it." After spending more than half a month in Northwood, much of the food in the fridge at the LNS house had expired. Leo took out the old food, ready to throw it away, and told Claire he was going to the supermarket to buy some fresh ingredients. Having just returned to their cozy little nest, Claire was reluctant to let him go. She glanced at the expiration date on one of the packages. "It's not that far past the date. Would it be a problem if we just ate it?" A simple question from Claire, the kitchen destroyer, the master of dark cuisine. Leo glanced at the visible mold on the food inside the transparent bag. He paused. "We might die," he said. At the same time, he silently solidified a new resolve. "In this lifetime, I must never let Bertha Sue cook again. People would die. After repeatedly warning his girlfriend to stay far away from the kitchen and to resist any sudden urges to improvise, Leo left the house alone and headed to a nearby grocery store. He picked out some fresh ingredients and vegetables, paid, and headed home. As he walked in, he saw Claire coming down the stairs. In a short time he was gone. She had already put their luggage away. That incredibly precious Wallace family heirloom, the jade bracelet, was of course treated with the utmost care and put away safely. Miss Sterling had come to a realization. Such a valuable bracelet couldn't be worn all the time. It couldn't risk being scratched or bumped. Therefore, she would only wear it on important occasions, when receiving important guests. Leo curiously asked what kind of people qualified as important. The question made her frown slightly. She tilted her head, thought for a moment, and gave her answer, the Queen of England, maybe Leo. Suddenly, it felt like the family heirloom was destined to never see the light of day again. After letting Claire know he was back, Leo carried the groceries into the kitchen. It was lunchtime, so he prepared to start cooking. Claire instinctively started to follow him in, ready to provide her unique brand of physical moral support. But Leo gently stopped her. Moral support was great, but it did tend to slow down the cooking process. It was almost lunchtime, and he didn't want his girlfriend to be hungry. Listen up, that is the textbook answer of a man with top-tier emotional intelligence. A prime example for all the single guys out there who just drool over romance novels to study. Claire had been a little reluctant, but after hearing his explanation, her mood immediately brightened. She stood on her tiptoes and gave him a rewarding kiss on the cheek. Then, she happily went back into the living room to do a little sweeping while he cooked. Without his girlfriend's interference, Leo worked much more efficiently in the kitchen. He washed vegetables, chopped meat, and started stir-frying. Soon, the enticing aroma of food drifted out, filling the entire villa. As he worked at the stove, Leo would occasionally glance out into the living room. He saw Claire in her house slippers, bent over with a dustpan and broom, sweeping the floor. A lock of hair fell across her face, but couldn't hide her stunning profile or her focused expression. Leo smiled. He thought of the woman he'd seen in news articles and magazines in his past life. The phoenix of the southern business world, the icy, unapproachable billionaire CEO. If he hadn't lived it himself, who would believe that such an exceptionally brilliant and aloof woman could be here now, like the gentlest of wives, doing such ordinary housework? How could a girl like this not steal your heart? How could she not be the dream of countless men? He brought his focus back to the kitchen and continued cooking. However, just as the food was nearly ready, he heard a sudden gasp from the living room. Leo froze. Then a flicker of concern crossed his face. He quickly turned off the stove and, without even putting down the spatula, rushed out. What's wrong? He hurried into the living room, but the scene that greeted him wasn't the accident he had feared. His girlfriend was perfectly fine, just standing on a bathroom scale. When Leo walked over, Claire was staring down at the number, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Her beautiful face showed a rare expression of disbelief. When she saw him approaching, she quickly stepped off the scale. It's nothing. She tried to maintain a cool, calm composure, but the way she instinctively tried to hide the scale behind her betrayed her anxiety. Leo understood immediately. Weighing yourself? What's the number? He was curious. He'd never really thought about it before. After all, his girlfriend was around 5 feet 7 inches, with a slender, well-proportioned figure. If anything, she seemed to have grown a little taller recently. She was definitely not anywhere close to being fat, but her reaction clearly indicated she'd just seen a rather shocking number. Claire's eyes flashed with nervousness, but her voice remained cool and steady. It's not much. Leo found this amusing and raised an eyebrow. Not much? But scared you like that? She feigned nonchalance. I wasn't scared. I just felt like singing a bit, warming up my voice. Leo nodded with an expression of understanding. Warming up, huh? Reasonable. As he said that, he suddenly lunged forward, trying to peek at the number on the scale before she could react. But Claire was just as quick. She wasn't about to let him succeed. She immediately stepped onto the scale, her slender, stocking-clad foot landing precisely on the digital display, obscuring the number. Leo laughed. Nice footwork. The more nervous she acted, the more curious he became. A single delicate foot wasn't going to stop him. He reached out, wrapped an arm around her slim waist, and lifted her up. Amidst his girlfriend's startled cry, he cleanly lifted her off the scale and turned to look at the number. Don't look, Claire cried out in a panic. In her desperation, she actually jumped onto his back, trying to block his view. The sneak attack caught Leo off guard, but he instinctively wrapped his arms around her to keep her from falling. The momentum of her jump sent him stumbling forward, right onto the scale. The air suddenly went still. The scene froze. At this moment, he was on the scale. She was on his back. The $28 scale from a roadside stand was experiencing this level of passionate attention for the first time in its professional career. Scale. The number on the display had updated. Leo and Claire both looked down. 123 kg. The air was silent for another second. Before Leo could speak, Claire, still on his back, spoke first, her tone casual. Leo, you're so heavy. You're over 200 pounds. Leo, question mark. The audacity, the absolute gall, to blame me first. In the living room of the LNS house, standing on the scale. The girl's tone was calm and collected. Leo, caught between laughter and exasperation, kindly reminded her, you seem to have forgotten that this is our combined weight. Subtract my weight, and the rest is yours. Claire, still on his back, paused. Her voice was cautious as she probed. What was your weight last time you checked? Leo's face was a mask of sincerity. I remember, under 100 pounds, which meant the remaining 140-plus pounds all belonged to Bertha Sue. That statement nearly knocked the wind out of her. When she recovered, she opened her cherry-red lips in a fit of embarrassed rage and bit down on his shoulder. Now, Wallace. This time, she bit down with some force. Ow, I was wrong. Leo winced. I was just kidding. She loosened her jaw slightly, but her mouth remained dangerously close to its target. Say it again. Leo tried to recall his actual weight. 125. She bit down again hard. Say it again. He sucked in a sharp breath. Wrong. 130. 135. 140. It became like an auction. He kept calling out numbers until he finally hit 150 pounds, which seemed to satisfy the little ancestor on his back. She said, her tone as solemn as if she were declaring a mathematical theorem. That's right. You're 150, and I'm 96. Leo nodded in fervent agreement. Right. Makes perfect sense. Can you get down now? No, she said decisively. She seemed to have taken a liking to being on his back. Her long, smooth legs were wrapped securely around his waist, and she reached up to playfully tug on her steed's ear. Giddy up. Take me to the dining table. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he played along, carefully supporting her as he walked toward the table. Along the way, he had to listen to her imperious, coolly delivered commands. Turn left. Accelerate. Parallel park. Leo rolled his eyes. Great, now Makar. Maybe the Maybach should retire, and Bertha Sue can just drive me instead. Go on, try to shift my manual gear. When they reached the table, Miss Sterling finally dismounted. Leo found himself feeling a little reluctant to let her go. It was the first time he'd given her a piggyback ride. The sensation was quite nice. He was already looking forward to doing it again. I should do this more often. Having made this decision, he told Claire he had one more dish to finish and went back to the kitchen. This time, surprisingly, Bertha Sue didn't follow him in for her usual moral support. She sat alone at the table, lost in thought. Leo was in the kitchen for a little while longer. When he came out with the food, he saw that she had somehow moved the scale from the living room to the dining area. She must have tried weighing herself again. He didn't know what the result was, but the batteries were now in her hand. He chuckled. You dismantled the scale? Claire nodded, her tone nonchalant. It's broken. All right. If it's broken, it's broken, he said with a helpless laugh. Let's eat. He set the bowls and chopsticks in front of her. The table was laden with a feast, the aroma tantalizing. Normally, Claire would have started eating without hesitation. But today, she just stared at the food, not moving. After a long moment, she said, Leo, I need to go on a diet. Her tone was grave, as if she had made a monumental decision. Leo was amused. What diet? You're not even fat. He had just been teasing her in the living room. He had a rough idea of his own weight. At just over 6 feet tall, he was around 185 pounds. That meant Claire was probably somewhere between 106 and 108 pounds. There was a saying, a girl under 100 pounds is either flat-chested or short. For a girl who was over 5 feet 7 inches, her weight was perfectly healthy and proportioned. If anything, getting thinner would be unhealthy. It was just that the old Claire Sterling had probably been even slimmer. This winter break, she had been eating so well at his family's house that she had put on a little healthy weight. Of course, he would never say that out loud. A basic survival instinct was essential. While it was a non-issue for guys, for girls, it was often a catastrophe. Looking at his girlfriend, Leo thought for a moment and offered some comfort. You're curvy in all the right places. Other people would be jealous. That was the absolute truth. Just now, when he'd been carrying her, the softness of her back against him, the curve of her hips and waist in his hands. He was just getting lost in the memory when he felt a chilling wave of killing intent wash over him. He looked up to see her narrowing her eyes at him. So you do think I'm fat? she said, a rare note of grievance in her voice. Leo snapped back to reality, shaking his head so vigorously it became a blur. No, absolutely not. You're only 96 pounds. How could you be fat? To appease his girlfriend, he had shamelessly bumped his own weight from 185 to 200. His earnest attitude finally seemed to improve her mood slightly. She nodded. Right? I'm 96 pounds. It was as if she was trying to hypnotize herself. But she couldn't fool herself completely. She looked at the delicious spread on the table and hesitated, still unable to pick up her chopsticks. But I still have to go on a diet. Leo wasn't having any of it. He picked up a chicken wing and placed it in her bowl. Fine, but eat first. You need energy to diet. The idea appealed to her. Reasonable, but won't chicken wings make me fat? He answered without skipping a beat. Of course not. The chicken exercised before it became a wing. Eating it is like you exercised. It's basically a direct workout. Hearing his blatant nonsense, Claire looked down at the fragrant, glistening braised chicken wing in her bowl. The cool Miss Sterling subtly pursed her lips. She swallowed a small mouthful of saliva. Then she nodded. Reasonable. She picked up the wing, took a bite, and spoke with her mouth full, the flavor exploding on her tongue. Leo. Yeah. What other dishes have exercised? All of them, he declared without a hint of shame. You eat. I'll make up the rest as we go. The fish swims all day, so it's basically exercising 24/7 before it becomes a fillet. This spicy chicken is hot enough to make you sweat. And isn't that just a form of weight loss? And what's wrong with ice cream for dessert? It's cold. That means it has no calories. Throughout the meal, Bertha Sue ate with gusto, not missing a single dish. Meanwhile, Leo's stream of nonsensical justifications was so prolific he could have published a book, The Reasonable Diet. After lunch, a satisfied Claire looked down and saw her slightly rounded belly. The smile on her face froze. She looked up at Leo. I still need to diet. And so, the diet began. The Great Bertha Sue weight loss plan was officially underway. Leo went to the kitchen to wash the dishes, and through the glass door, he could see his girlfriend in the living room, stretching and warming up. Her lines were graceful, her movements fluid and meticulous. It was a beautiful sight. When Leo finished in the kitchen, Claire turned to him, raised an eyebrow, and beckoned him over. Come work out with me. Leo readily agreed. He had started training with Mr. Joe over the break, and he couldn't let his daily stances and combat skills get rusty. And so, the atmosphere in the singles slaughterhouse changed. A young man and a young woman, exercising with serious focus. Occasionally, they would spar. Both were soon sweating profusely. What are you thinking? Get your mind out of the gutter. It was actual sweat. After the workout, Leo wiped his brow, ready to take the kitchen trash out. But Claire stopped him. Leave it. I'll do it. She was now completely committed to her diet. Any task that could be classified as exercise, she eagerly claimed. Leo just smiled and nodded, watching as she grabbed the 2 trash bags and marched out the door. He picked up the broom and dustpan and started sweeping the living room. When she returned, she saw him sweeping and immediately frowned. Leave it. I'll do it, she declared, striding over to take the broom and dustpan from his hands. Under his amused gaze, she energetically resumed cleaning. She wasn't letting a single opportunity for exercise go to waste. While Miss Sterling was busy with her enthusiastic house cleaning, Leo, having been relieved of all his duties, sat on the sofa, watching her. An idea popped into his head. I heard kissing burns calories, he said casually. It was something he'd read online in his past life, some article that had seemed quite convincing at the time. Claire's cleaning movements stopped abruptly. She turned and stared at him, her eyes beginning to sparkle. Leo started to feel a bit awkward under her intense gaze. He ran a hand through his hair. I just saw it online. It might not even be true. Before he could finish, a fragrant whirlwind descended upon him. She dropped the broom and dustpan and lunged. Let's test it. Leo had never expected his girlfriend's passion for dieting to be this intense. Without any warning, he was tackled onto the soft sofa. Wait, I'm not ready, he stammered, but his words were cut off as her soft, warm lips pressed against his. Ready for what? Test first, talk later. If kisses could be counted, the air in the living room of the L&S house would be filled with a cascade of notifications. Soft interaction +1, +1, +1. A few moments later, their lips finally parted. Claire propped herself up, looked down at him, and asked for his opinion. Was that enough? Leo was still reeling from the whirlwind of kisses, his head spinning. Yeah, that was definitely enough. Good Lord. He'd almost passed out from lack of oxygen. According to the standards of a certain retired Special Forces agent's logbook, that short session had probably burned through half a month's quota of soft interactions. Even dieters need a rest. That afternoon, Leo suggested they watch a movie on the sofa. We could watch a tearjerker and cry off some weight, or a horror movie and sweat it off. That might work, he bluffed, his eyes glancing towards the stack of Mr. Chin's specially curated DVDs in the corner of the TV stand. He added without blinking. Or we could watch some action movies and learn from their techniques. Of course, his plan didn't succeed. They were both sweaty from their workout, so they decided to shower and change first. When Leo came back downstairs, he saw his girlfriend once again standing before the scale, her expression as grave as if she were facing a formidable enemy. Before he could speak, a jacket was flung at him. Catch! He caught it, about to say something, when a set of keys and a phone came flying his way. Catch! He juggled the keys in his left hand and fumbled for the phone with his right. This is a bit much, don't you think? Before he could finish, a black object flew through the air and hit him squarely on the forehead, then slowly slid down his face. Leo sighed, pulled the object off his face, and was about to complain when he saw what it was, a black, over-the-knee stocking. The complaint died in his throat. Good throw. Great aim. He nonchalantly stuffed the 2 stockings into his pocket and offered a helpful suggestion. Want to take off anything else? Anything else would be pay-per-view content. The girl ignored him, took a deep breath, and cautiously stepped onto the scale. Then, with a look of grim determination, she glanced down at the display. Silence. Leo watched from a safe distance. How is it? He asked tentatively. Claire was silent. She stepped off the scale and walked toward the sofa, her expression unreadable. Let's watch the movie, she said. Tomorrow, we're buying a new scale. Date cakes whet your appetite. A bigger appetite means you can eat more. If you eat the same amount as before, but have a bigger appetite, it means you're not full. Not being full is basically fasting. And fasting is dieting. Leo concluded with a flourish. So it's fine. You can eat it. He took the bag of homemade date cakes from Leon's hand and passed it to his girlfriend. A look of relief washed over Claire's face. Reasonable, she said, nodding. She took the bag and skipped over to the sofa to enjoy her treat. Marco and Leon stared, utterly dumbfounded. When they recovered, their admiration for Leo was boundless. Holy shit, Leo, you're a genius. No wonder you're dating the campus queen. You earned it. Leo, however, had no time for their praise. He pulled his 2 roommates into a corner for a briefing. Bertha Sue is currently in a rare diet-sensitive phase. All guests must adhere to the following principles. The words fat, heavy, or similar terms are strictly forbidden. Claire Sterling's weight is, and will always be, the standard answer of 96 pounds. Miss Sterling is gifted with a metabolism that allows her to eat anything without gaining weight. The scale is not a good scale. We all hate it. Marco and Leon's eyes widened in understanding. They nodded vigorously. Don't worry, Leo. Leave it to us. The 2 of them then scurried over to the sofa and launched into a torrent of effusive praise for Claire. Bertha, you look even thinner after the break. Yeah. You're practically a beanpole. How'd you lose the weight? I gotta get Molly to learn from you. They had stumbled right into a minefield. Claire's eyebrows shot up. Marco elbowed Leon and quickly tried to backtrack. What are you talking about, man? Bertha doesn't need to lose weight. She's not fat at all. Another landmine. Leon nodded earnestly. Right. Not fat. You can't even tell with the naked eye. Leo sighed. It's hopeless. These 2 have a talent for avoiding every possible safe path. You can never count on the clumsy words of straight guys. But you can always count on the power of girls. Just as Leon and Marco were sweating under Claire's icy gaze, the girls from room 205 arrived, just in time to save the day. Their arrival filled the living room with a cheerful, lively buzz. Seeing Claire, they rushed over for a group hug. After a moment of affection, they pulled back to look her over. Wow, Claire, you got even prettier. You're glowing. Your face looks smaller, and your waist is so tiny. Spill it. Were you secretly working out all break? You're so curvy, I just want to grab a handful. Listening to their stream of praise, Leo couldn't help but nod in admiration. He turned to his 2 roommates. Take notes. Marco and Leon were stunned. So this is what high-level emotional intelligence sounds like. Terrifying. The girls sat down on the sofa. When they heard about Claire's diet plan, their eyebrows shot up in unison. Diet? What diet? You have such a great figure. You're already so slim. Are you trying to kill yourself? Quinn was especially emphatic. Your body is perfect. You can't be more than 100 pounds, tops. My eyes on my ruler, and they're never wrong. Claire was nearly swept away by the flood of compliments. But at Quinn's last statement, she looked a little embarrassed. Actually, that's not. She glanced at Leo, Marco, and Leon, then leaned in and whispered a number into her roommate's ears. The three girls' response was immediate and unanimous. Then the scale is definitely broken. Jade adjusted her glasses and offered a calm, objective suggestion. You should buy a new one. There's a guy who sells scales on the street by the East Gate. His are more accurate. Leon overheard this and looked puzzled. The guy at the East Gate? His scales are messed up. I'm normally 180, but his scales said I was 110. Before he could finish, the girls from room 205 shot him a look as sharp as daggers. Leon shivered, still not understanding what he'd done wrong. I'm telling the truth. Thankfully, his girlfriend, Molly, couldn't bear to watch anymore. She quickly stuffed a date cake in his mouth. If you don't know how to talk, then don't. Eat this. Quinn delivered the final verdict. Anyway, Claire, your figure is perfect. If you don't believe us, ask Dylan. She pointed to Dylan, who had just walked through the door. Dylan, just arriving? ? Claire's gaze immediately shifted to him. Molly chimed in exactly. Dylan, do you think our Claire's fat? If you think she's gotten fat, just say so. Dylan. The girls all nodded in satisfaction. See? Dylan agrees. Today was the official return to school day, but classes didn't start until tomorrow afternoon. So for the two dorms gathered at the single slaughterhouse, it was one last day of vacation. Having more people around definitely livened things up. They hadn't seen each other all break and had missed each other. Molly and Leon, the little couple, were stuck together like glue in a corner of the sofa, whispering sweet nothings. Jade had cornered Dylan with her notebook, eager to hear about his spiritual training over the break. Quinn roped Marco, Leo, and Claire into a game of pool at the table in the living room. The pool table had been sitting idle, and this was its first real use. It was also the first time most of them had witnessed Miss Sterling's skills. Initially, Quinn and Marco had been on a team, full of confidence and ready to teach the LNS combo a lesson. But Leo didn't even get a chance to play. His girlfriend coolly picked up a cue, and a few minutes later, she had effortlessly crushed her opponents, leaving the table cleared and Quinn and Marco staring in stunned silence. The topic of the East Bay financial girl was just a passing bit of gossip. Everyone assumed Marco was exaggerating. No girl could be that beautiful. Besides, if a girl of that caliber did exist, she was sitting right there at the table with them. Since Marco was just repeating rumors, he couldn't really argue, and just mumbled that he'd have to go see for himself one day. Only Leo and Claire knew he wasn't lying, but they didn't say anything. They figured everyone would get a chance to meet Anna eventually. With her personality and social skills, she'd fit right in with the girls from room 205. As for the guys from room 520, getting along with them would be even easier. Well, by getting along, they meant she'd be playing with them. After a satisfying meal, it was getting late. Everyone helped clear the table and clean the kitchen, then got ready to leave. They needed to get back to their dorms to unpack, and they were all considerate enough not to overstay their welcome and interrupt the couple's private time. At the door, they said their goodbyes, offering a few cheap words of thanks to Miss Sterling for her hospitality and to their savior, Leo Hammer, for his hard work in the kitchen. Only Leon and Molly left tangible gifts. Leon, of course, left another bag of date cakes. Molly, meanwhile, pulled a few romance novels from her backpack and generously shared them with Claire. The date cake guy and the novel girl. That little couple really was a perfect match. Although the flood of compliments from her roommates had restored some of her confidence, before bed, Claire couldn't resist stepping on the scale one last time. She took off her jacket and socks, her bare feet stepping cautiously onto the device. After checking the number, she stepped off, her expression as cool and unreadable as ever. She turned to Leo and ordered, "Go to the East Gate tomorrow and buy a new one." As a qualified boyfriend, Leo immediately offered his unwavering support. "First thing tomorrow. It's broken. It needs to be replaced. Reasonable. The old scale. QAQ." That night, in the bedroom, the lights were off, and the couple was tucked into bed. But the girl couldn't sleep. She kept tossing and turning, her hands tracing the lines of her own stomach. Finally, she scooted closer to him. "Leo, touch me. See if I have a tummy." Her voice was cool, but laced with a serious gravity. Leo dutifully complied, his hand resting on her waist. The skin was smooth and silky, a sensation that sent a jolt through him. He quickly composed himself and felt her abdomen. "Well," Claire's voice was slightly tense. "No," Leo said with firm conviction. "Totally normal." Claire sighed in relief, but still seemed unconvinced. "Feel carefully." "Okay," he said, and dutifully reached out again. "Seems fine. No tummy here." Then his voice changed. "Wait, huh? This part seems a little big, and it's kind of bouncy." Silence. After a moment, A cool voice laced with killing intent echoed in the darkness. I told you to feel my stomach, not to go higher. He sounded as if he'd just realized his mistake. Oh, my hand slipped. A coincidence, just a coincidence. After some more playful bickering, things finally quieted down. In the darkness, Claire's voice sounded softly again. Leo, have I been a little childish lately? Her tone was as light as ever, but it held a note of self-reflection. Leo was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled. It was true. Her childish delight over the jade bracelet, her war with the bathroom scale, none of it fit the image of the cool and composed Miss Sterling. Anyone else would have been shocked to see it. As her boyfriend, Leo had witnessed it all firsthand. His girlfriend had, in many ways, lost some of her former aloofness. She had become more clingy and sweet, more lively and adorable. When Leo didn't answer right away, Claire felt a rare pang of anxiety. She was aware of the changes in herself. She couldn't explain many of them. It was as if, ever since they started dating, her personality had been subtly shifting. She had become more attached, more insecure, more willing to act cute and spoil, not as a calculated move to tease him. It was a natural impulse that she acted on before she even realized it. If her employees from her past life could see her now, they would be petrified. They would never believe that the phoenix of the Southern business world, the icy CEO, could turn into this. Into a girl head over heels in love. Yeah, he finally said, his voice laced with a gentle smile. You're like a girl in love. His words hit home, and she felt a flutter of nervousness. She bit her lip and whispered, me being like this. Will you not like it? She wasn't sure what his answer would be. This was in 2 lifetimes her first real relationship. The first time she had ever loved someone so completely. The next moment, before he answered, she felt a hand reach out in the darkness and gently pinch her nose. Then she heard his voice again. Are you silly? She instinctively looked up, meeting his warm, smiling gaze in the dim light. I love Claire Sterling. I love the Sly Fox. And I love Bertha Sue. So don't overthink it. I love every version of you. As long as it's you, I'll love it. And it's because it's you that I love it. His calm voice carried a quiet, gentle power that was undeniable. The air went still. The girl was stunned. Then, her eyes began to sparkle. Leo Hammer, she whispered, her teeth gently catching her lower lip, her eyes full of a sultry charm. You're very good with words. As a reward, I'll allow you to feel my stomach again. Leo blinked. A question mark appeared over his head. What's so great about feeling your stomach? She was both exasperated and amused. She glared at him, her voice a seductive whisper. You idiot, I'm allowing you to go higher. It was his turn to be stunned. When he finally understood, his face lit up with pure joy. Order received. Thank you, Your Majesty. The next morning, Leo and Claire officially returned to campus. On a February morning in Berkeley, the air was still crisp and cool. The couple wore thick, warm jackets and matching black and pink baseball caps to shield against the wind. The L and S on the caps were as clear and eye-catching as the sight of them walking hand-in-hand down the campus paths. They easily attracted the gazes of other Berkeley students. In front of the girls' dorm 16, Leo helped Claire with her luggage. It was time for them to part ways for now. Before heading upstairs, Claire turned to him and raised an eyebrow. Time for some weight loss. A brand new, upgraded code phrase. Leo understood instantly. You got it, he declared, ready for duty. The next second, she stepped forward, stood on her tiptoes, and planted a kiss on his lips. This sweet, picturesque scene was witnessed by numerous students passing by. They all continued on their way, as if nothing had happened. The only difference was that every single one of them was inwardly screaming. Holy shit, the chaos couple is back. A wave of envy and jealousy washed over them, reigniting the old grudges from last semester. Fuck you, Northwood High. After watching his girlfriend disappear into the dorm, Leo turned to leave. He had planned to go straight back to his own room in Building 37, but on his way, he passed the dining hall. He figured his roommates were probably still asleep and hadn't eaten breakfast. So he went in and bought soy milk, fried dough sticks, and buns for 4. Carrying the takeout bag, he headed back to his dorm. He pushed open the door to room 520. Sure enough, Marco and Dylan were still fast asleep in their bunk beds. Only Leon, the dorm's resident fitness fanatic, was already up, working out on the balcony. A muscular guy, flexing in front of the girls' dorm across the way. It was hard to say whether the girls were getting an eyeful or an eyesore. Leon finished his workout, sweaty and energized, and came back inside to see Leo with a large bag of breakfast. His face lit up. Leo, you're back? Leo smiled and held up the bag. Haven't eaten yet, have you? I got some for everyone. The sounds woke up Marco and Dylan. They poked their heads over the side of their bunks. Leo's back. Holy shit, is that breakfast? Father, please accept this child's worship. All sleepiness vanished in an instant. They scrambled down from their beds, fully awake. A few moments later, the four of them were sitting at the desk, happily eating the breakfast Leo had brought, chatting idly between bites. Seeing this scene, Leo finally felt like the new semester had truly begun. They talked about their classes. This semester was packed with major courses, much more intense than the last. They had to start choosing electives, and for some classes, they'd even have to take a bus to a different Berkeley campus far away. That's good news, though, Marco said, looking invigorated. The School of Law and the School of Arts are on the other campus. Especially the School of Arts. Tons of pretty girls there. We have to check it out when we go for class. As he spoke, he deftly opened his laptop, logged on, and pulled up the Berkeley student forums. He clicked on a popular, high-reply thread, Berkeley Beauties by Department, a statistical analysis. He then began a detailed presentation, pointing at the pictures and text on the screen. Look, law and arts are where all the beauties are. Forget the upperclassmen. In our year, we've got the freshman girl from law, Chloe Cheen, and the it girl from arts, Isabella Zhao. One is rated an 8. 0. The other is a straight 9. 0. Holy shit, do you know what a 9? 0 means? Our humanities it girl, Lily Liu, is only an 8. 2. In any other year, a 9. 0 would be the campus belle, hands down. Marco was ecstatic. Leon and Dylan listened, mesmerized. Leo chimed in casually, so why isn't she this year? The air in the room suddenly went still. All three of his roommates turned to stare at him, their expressions full of deep-seated resentment. You're just asking to be annoying, aren't you? It's because of Bertha Sue, you bastard. The handsome culprit feigned realization. Oh, then, without batting an eye, he apologized. Sorry, I forgot. To be honest, I'm kind of face-blind. I can't really tell what's considered beautiful. It was a rare opportunity, and he wasn't about to pass up a good humble brag. His words left the other three guys in room 520 completely speechless. They looked at each other. Then a collective rage welled up inside them. Brothers, get him. The three of them swarmed him, giving him a thorough, friendly beatdown. Finally, feeling much better, they sat back down. Marco turned back to the screen and shook his head in admiration. This thread is updated daily. All the latest intel. At least half the guys at Berkeley follow it. It's solidly number 1 on the forums. The gap between it and the number 2 thread is massive. Leo straightened his messy clothes and hair, then casually asked, "What's the number 2 thread?" Marco shot him a sideways glance and pushed the laptop over. "See for yourself." Leo leaned in. The title of the second most popular thread was displayed in bold, eye-catching letters. Official sign-up sheet. Fuck Northwood High. Leo. He nodded, his expression serene. Reasonable. He was already mentally planning how to prevent his high school homeroom teacher and the dean from ever stumbling upon the Berkeley student forums. Classes began that afternoon. The first was, as always, classical literature analysis, taught by the same charming, middle-aged professor, Mr. Jiang. When he took attendance, his eyes lingered on Leo, and he even asked with concern, "Why isn't Miss Sterling here today?" When Leo explained that she also had class that afternoon, Mr. Jiang nodded in understanding, a hint of disappointment on his face. It was clear that he paid far more attention to a certain young lady than to any other student in the class. The idea of browser-based games had taken root in Leo's mind. It was all he could think about during class. When the final bell rang, he texted Claire, and they agreed to meet at the dining hall. When she returned to the table with her tray, he was still lost in thought. "Hello." The girl's slender, pale hand waved in front of his face, finally snapping him out of it. "Huh." Claire sat down across from him, eyeing her zoned-out boyfriend. "You've been daydreaming this whole time. On the walk over, and now you're still staring into space at the dinner table." She tilted her head. "What are you thinking about so intently?" Leo pulled himself back to the present, a slight smile playing on his lips as he looked at the campus beauty in front of him. He decided to poke the bear. A beautiful woman. A relationship isn't real until you've risked your life at least 10 times. Men are always inexplicably drawn to testing their girlfriend's limits. But the girl sitting across from him was no ordinary girlfriend. Hearing his answer, Claire didn't get angry or annoyed. She just offered a calm, faint smile. "Is that so?" Now, it was Leo's turn to be curious. "You're not jealous?" The girl had already started eating her dinner, completely unbothered. She answered casually, "No, because no matter what beautiful woman you're thinking of, she's not as beautiful as me." The effortless confidence of a girl who had been the it girl of both Northwood High and Berkeley. Leo was momentarily stunned by her matter-of-fact response. He looked at his girlfriend's flawless, transcendently beautiful face and could only nod in agreement. True. Claire had ordered a bowl of beef noodle soup. She picked up a piece of beef with her chopsticks and, under the envious and jealous glares of everyone else in the dining hall, placed it onto Leo's tray. She performed the action with practiced ease, then looked up at her boyfriend again. So she said, "What are you really thinking about?" Leo didn't hide it. "Nothing much. Just trying to figure out how to make enough money to marry you and take care of you." At the mention of that topic, Bertha Sue was wide awake. A spark lit up in her eyes, and she leaned forward, her interest piqued. She rested her chin on her hand, her gaze fixed on him. "Did you think of something?" Leo smiled. "How about a little idea? Not fully baked yet." Claire pressed him. "What kind of idea?" Leo gave her a two-word answer. "Games." Games. A giant question mark popped over the head of the tiny cartoon version of her in her mind. She was a little lost. She remembered him mentioning a plan to make money over winter break, and she'd been supportive. Hearing him bring it up again, she had been prepared to listen to his detailed strategy. Then, using her experience as the former CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, she would help her little idiot strategize and offer some guidance. She never expected this answer. Games. The girl frowned slightly, looking at her boyfriend to confirm. Legitimate games? Leo's face darkened. Of course, they're legitimate games. What in the world was going on in Bertha Sue's head? Did she really think he was that kind of guy? After a moment of internal indignation, Leo patiently explained. There are single-player games and online games. And online games can be split into client-based and browser-based games. The one I'm looking into is browser-based, also known as flash games. The explanation only seemed to confuse her more. Even for a reborn person, she wasn't omniscient. She couldn't be an expert in every field. In her past life, as the powerful CEO of a major corporation, her expertise had always been in brick-and-mortar industries. And while her rebirth gave her more than a decade of extra knowledge compared to most people, she knew next to nothing about the gaming industry. She wasn't a gamer herself. At most, she'd occasionally overhear her employees talking about games like Genshin Impact or Black Myth. Wukong. Coming back to her senses, Claire looked at Leo curiously. "You know about all this?" Leo grinned. "It's normal for guys to like games. I've been playing them since I was a kid. Started with the NES, then moved on to single-player and online games on the PC. I played pretty much everything. Back when I was really into it, Kevin and I used to sneak out to LAN centers and pull all-nighters." Claire paused, then remembered reading Leo's diary from her past life. He had indeed mentioned playing computer games many times. A look of understanding crossed her face. Leo, on the other hand, was getting a little nostalgic. Man, those were the days. We weren't even old enough and didn't have IDs, but we'd find any way we could to get into a LAN center. Then one time my mom caught me, and I got a tag team lecture from both her and my dad. I never went back after that. But thinking about it now, it was still a lot of fun. Claire looked at him, an idea forming. She raised an eyebrow. "How about we find a LAN center tonight?" Leo blinked. "Huh." He looked at his girlfriend and shook his head. "You don't even play games. You'd be bored." At his words, a radiant smile bloomed on Claire's face. "No, I wouldn't. You'll play, and I'll watch you. I won't be bored." She truly didn't understand games and, under any other circumstances, would have no interest in exploring the field. But if it was something her little idiot liked, she was willing to try, to explore, to understand. And even if she couldn't understand, she could at least offer her company. Besides, another thought occurred to her. She looked at Leo and tilted her head. "I've heard it's a really big deal for a guy to take his girlfriend to a LAN center. Makes him look really cool, right? Did you ever want to do that?" Leo froze, then broke out in a sweat, vehemently denying it. "No way. Bertha Sue, you're overthinking it. Why would I be so childish? Absolutely not." Of course he had. Leo Hammer Wallace had recorded it clearly in his ninth-grade diary. He'd written about seeing other couples at the LAN center, full of longing and envy. So, seeing him sweating and denying it now, Claire wasn't bothered in the slightest. She gracefully reached out and affectionately ruffled his hair. Her smile was brilliant and magnanimous. "It's okay. Just follow my lead. Today, I'll make you look cool." By 2008, arcades had long faded into obscurity, replaced by LAN centers that flourished with the rise of popular online games like World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike. The chic, high-end internet cafes wouldn't appear for a few more years. For now, most LAN centers were just large rooms packed with dozens, sometimes hundreds, of computers. A crowd of guys would sit in front of the screens, wreathed in cigarette smoke, furiously clicking their mice and keyboards while a cacophony of shouts, curses, and cries of frustration filled the air. The closest land center to the east gate of Berkeley was called the Gilded Phoenix. Most of its patrons were Berkeley students, along with kids from other nearby schools. Even though Berkeley was one of the top universities in the country, just a tier below Harvard and Yale, its students couldn't just study all day. They needed some R&R too, especially the single ones. The single students of the Gilded Phoenix had a whole philosophy about it. They get to make out, we get to play games. It's all about getting some action. They hold their girlfriend's hand, we hold our mouse. It's all about holding something. Who's to say who's happier, really? Tonight, the Gilded Phoenix was packed and buzzing with energy. An entire dorm suite had shown up to play Counter-Strike, but they were one man down. One of them made a call. Hey, Lou, where are you? We said we were going to play tonight. What? You're with your girlfriend? Since when is a girlfriend more fun than a headshot? Hello? Hello? He sullenly hung up and turned to his friends with a grave expression. We have a traitor in our midst. The other guys were equally indignant. Forget him. The guy gets a girlfriend and acts like he's won the lottery. What's the big deal? We could get girlfriends if we wanted to, but you can only have a girlfriend or games, not both. We actively chose games. It has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we can't get girlfriends. It wasn't just these guys. For nearly everyone in the Gilded Phoenix, it was an unspoken rule. You couldn't have both a girlfriend and games. So they chose games. However, that rule was about to be broken. The transparent plastic curtain at the entrance was pushed aside, letting in a gust of crisp, early spring night air. A boy and a girl walked in, holding hands. The gamers, who had been intensely focused on their screens, instinctively glanced toward the door. And then, their gazes shot past the boy and locked onto the girl behind him. A girl so stunningly, ethereally beautiful it was almost unreal. Suddenly, the first gamer to see her went slack-jawed, the cigarette he was holding dropping to the floor. Then a second, then a third. One by one, as their teammates complained. What are you staring at? Pay attention. They followed their friends' gazes. They saw the girl, standing gracefully by the entrance, exuding a quiet elegance. And they saw the hand she was holding so intimately, her fingers intertwined with his. It was as if they had all been struck by Medusa's gaze. They froze, turning to stone. For a brief, bizarre moment, the entire land center fell silent. A second later, the noise returned. The gamers turned back to their screens, feigning indifference, and started shouting again. Let's go, let's go. Keep it coming. Watch me carry this round. Everything seemed to return to normal. Only the reflections on their monitors betrayed the violent shaking of their pupils. Beneath their nonchalant exteriors, the hearts of 100 young men quietly shattered. What the hell, man? I thought we all agreed you could only have a girlfriend or games. Why does he get to have both? Wah. Leading his girlfriend into the land center, Leo scanned the chaotic, noisy room and felt a twinge of embarrassment. He turned to Claire. Land centers are usually like this. Kind of a mess. This wasn't one of the nicer internet cafes that would pop up later. People smoked, people cursed. It wouldn't be a real land center otherwise. Although Claire nodded in understanding, Leo decided to ask the guy at the front desk if they had any private or semi-private booths. He wanted Bertha Sue's first land center experience to be a good one. When he got to the counter, there was no one there. Peeking behind the desk, he saw someone lounging on a recliner with a men's magazine covering his face. Excuse me, Leo said. 2 computers, please. Do you have any private booths? The person on the recliner heard him and lazily sat up, tossing the magazine aside. IDs, please. As the magazine fell away, the man's face was revealed, and Leo froze. Mr. Chien. The man sitting at the front desk was none other than the owner of a motel and their former landlord at the beach house, Mr. Chien himself. Claire walked up just then and saw the familiar face. She was slightly surprised, then it clicked. The Gilded Phoenix, she murmured. No wonder. Leo had the same realization. He'd thought the name sounded familiar. Mr. Chien now recognized Leo and Claire, his face lighting up with surprise. It's you two. A warm reunion of old friends followed. Mr. Chien proudly explained that the Gilded Phoenix Land Center was another one of his business ventures. He looked between Leo and Claire, and out of habit, his hand shot out as if to offer a key card. I only have one room left. He caught himself halfway through the motion, right? This was a land center, not a motel. They were logging on, not checking in. He took their IDs, quickly registered them, and handed them back with a grand wave of his hand. Machines 2 and 3. The only exclusive couples booth in the establishment. Clean, tidy, and offers maximum privacy. As they walked toward the booth with their IDs, Leo couldn't help but feel a grudging respect. His girlfriend had a point. If they ever got married, nobody could start eating until Mr. Chen arrived. The exclusive couples booth was really just a semi-private alcove with a long sofa and a bead curtain for some semblance of privacy. Still, it was much better than the main floor. They sat down on the sofa. Leo found the tower under the desk and powered it on. Beside him, Claire looked around with curiosity and interest. For her, this was genuinely her first LAN center experience in 2 lifetimes. Everything felt new and exciting. Inside the Gilded Phoenix's exclusive couples booth, Claire watched with fascination as her boyfriend turned on the computer, entered his login details, and navigated the desktop with an expression of intense focus. It was all new and amusing to her. "What are you doing now?" "Booting up, logging in. And then I find a game." "What game?" "Whatever. Something simple, so we can play together." The girl peppered him with questions, and Leo answered casually as he worked. "Leo, yeah." He was just about to click on the games folder when he heard her call his name. He turned instinctively. He was met with her sparkling eyes and the gentle curve of her smile. "Kiss me." Leo, the tiny cartoon version of him inside his head froze, a giant question mark appearing above it. He glanced around the bustling LAN center, feeling a little self-conscious. Here? I don't know. It was a booth, but only semi-private. The bead curtain didn't hide much. And he was certain that since they'd sat down, at least half the eyes in the room had been secretly glancing their way. Plus, the booth wasn't soundproof. His girlfriend's request, spoken at a normal volume, had definitely been overheard by the patrons at nearby computers who had been shamelessly eavesdropping. He could practically see a few of them flinch, their hands fumbling on their keyboards and mice, making huge mistakes in their games. They gave up on playing altogether and turned to stare, their faces a mixture of disbelief and anguish, as if to say, "If you bastards kiss in here, we will literally kill ourselves right in front of you, you hear me?" Seeing Leo hesitate, Claire didn't press the issue. "Fine, forget it." Leo let out a sigh of relief, feeling like he'd just done a good deed and protected the fragile hearts of his fellow gamers. But just as he turned back to the computer, a soft fragrance wafted from his side. A warm, gentle pressure touched his cheek. It was there and gone in an instant. He whipped his head around, staring blankly at his girlfriend. The girl who had just stolen a kiss on his cheek leaned back, completely composed. She gave him a little eyebrow raise, as if nothing had happened. "Then I'll kiss you." Leo, reasonable. He couldn't resist a glance at the nearby machines. The other patrons seemed to be playing their games, their faces impassive, as if they hadn't noticed a thing. But he could have sworn he heard a faint, widespread crackling sound, as if a few more hearts had just quietly shattered. 2008 was a golden age for online gaming. A quick scan of the Gilded Phoenix's main floor revealed the landscape. A quarter of the players were on World of Warcraft, another quarter were playing Counter-Strike, a third quarter were grinding in MapleStory, and the rest were playing various other games or had a download manager open, acquiring educational materials. "What do you think you're doing?" Mr. Chen, the part-time owner, walked over to one such patron with a stern expression. "This is a respectable establishment. No funny business." The customer flushed with shame, but then Mr. Chen pointed nonchalantly to a corner of the room. "If you need to study, go to the study area. Just wear headphones so you don't bother anyone." Before the day's customer could react, Mr. Chen had already turned and walked away, hands clasped behind his back like a worldly sage. The understanding and class of Mr. Chen. Back in the couple's booth, Leo had started a game for Claire. There were plenty of options, but finding one suitable for a girl who had never been to a LAN center before took some thought. He finally settled on something simple and easy to learn. Bubble Blast. The art style was cute and cartoonish, and the controls were simple. You just move a little character around different maps, trying to blow up your opponents with bombs to win. When Claire first started playing, she was cautious and meticulous. Even in the most basic tutorial match, she was on high alert, her expression unusually serious, as if she weren't facing a cartoon character but making a critical decision on a multi-billion-dollar project for Sterling Holdings. Leo sat beside her, watching and giving her pointers. He occasionally glanced at the look of intense concentration on her ethereally beautiful face and felt a warmth spread through his chest. Who would have thought? This celestial beauty, who should have been perched on a pedestal far above everyone else, was willing to sit with him in this ordinary, messy little LAN center, playing a silly game. She might not have been having the time of her life, but she was giving it her all for her boyfriend. As he watched her exquisite profile, he found her more adorable than ever. He couldn't resist. He leaned in and pecked her on the cheek. At that exact moment, the hands of several patrons secretly watching from the main floor twitched once more. He's doing it again? Claire was a little surprised by Leo's sneak attack. She turned to him, raising an eyebrow in question. Leo's expression was perfectly natural. Nothing. You were playing so well, I was just praising you. Hearing his praise, the girl's eyes curved in a happy crescent. Reasonable. Then she leaned forward and planted a kiss on his lips. Crack, crackle, snap. In a corner of the land center, unnoticed by the happy couple, the patrons' hearts shattered again, bleeding internally as they began to plan their exodus. This place was a lost cause. They'd have to find a new spot. As the owner, Mr. Chin was unaware of the impending threat to his business. He saw the affectionate couple in the booth from afar and nodded in satisfaction. A perfect match. In the booth, Leo introduced Claire to a few other simple games. She picked up Audition online the fastest and seemed to be getting a little addicted. Watching her slender, elegant fingers fly across the keyboard, Leo was both impressed and had a strange thought. Thought number one, am I going to turn Bertha Sue into a gaming addict? Thought number two, man, her fingers are fast. A true heroine indeed. Claire was oblivious to her idiot boyfriend's wandering thoughts. After finishing another round, she let go of the mouse and keyboard with a satisfied sigh and turned to him. Is this the kind of game you want to make? You'd need a lot of money for that. Author's note, I'll try for a third chapter tonight. Remember to send reminders and little gifts. Thanks, everyone. Hearing his girlfriend's assessment, Leo laughed. Of course not. I couldn't afford to make a game like this. The technical team and support required for a client-based online game were beyond what an ordinary person could imagine. To put it simply, you'd have to burn money like there was no tomorrow. High cost, high risk, and not necessarily a high return. Claire thought for a moment, then looked at him. If you have a clear idea, money doesn't have to be an issue. She was offering, without reservation, to help her boyfriend. While she didn't have a concrete concept of how much a large-scale online game cost, it didn't stop her from making the offer so casually. No matter how much it costs. She, Claire Sterling, was not short on cash. And if she was, her father, Charles Sterling, certainly wasn't. In fact, with her foresight as a reborn person, she knew that many of Sterling Holdings' business ventures in the coming years were redundant. She could trim some fat, like that mistress her second uncle was keeping, or those useless projects started by her third granduncle's two good-for-nothing sons. She'd cut them all. The money would be perfect for supporting her boyfriend's entrepreneurial dream. It was perfect, logical, and reasonable. An entire plan flashed through Claire's mind in an instant, detailed down to the step-by-step process of how to deal with all the parasitic relatives and redundant projects. And for the ones that were difficult to handle, she'd just have Mr. Joe handle them. Physically, Leo was taken aback by his girlfriend's casually domineering promise. When he recovered, he was amused. No, that's not necessary. I was never aiming for a project of that scale anyway. Even with funding, finding the right team would be nearly impossible. My idea is to start with something small, a simple browser-based game, just to test the waters. Claire looked at him skeptically. Can something small even make money? Leo smiled. Don't underestimate small games. They can make money just as fast as the big ones, if not faster. Low cost, short development cycle, low risk, and a high tolerance for trial and error. That was Leo's simple assessment of browser-based games in this era. The spending habits of gamers couldn't be measured by logic. The amount of money whales were willing to drop on browser games was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. His foresight as a reborn person gave him all the confidence he needed. All he had to do now was get it done as quickly as possible. Are they really that powerful? Claire was surprised by his explanation. She raised an eyebrow. Find one and show me. Claire's curiosity had been genuinely piqued by her boyfriend. A few moments later, however, after Leo opened a browser and pulled up a couple of examples, the composed, ethereal expression on her face was replaced by a rare look of stunned disbelief. She stared at the crude, low-quality graphics on the screen for a long time. Then she turned to her boyfriend and confirmed one more time. This is what you're calling a profitable browser game? Leo, however, was completely unfazed. Yep. Claire turned back to the screen, unwilling to give up, and scrutinized the game again. She confirmed that she genuinely could not see any path to profit in this pile of shoddily made garbage. She looked back at Leo, her tone careful and diplomatic. You could just let me be your sugar mama. It was clear now. Her boyfriend really didn't have a head for business. Or he was just being delusional. How could this possibly make money? Leo saw right through her and chuckled. What, you think it's too crude? Claire nodded. Even as a total gaming novice, she could tell. The big online game she had played earlier, even if she didn't like their art style or gameplay, at least had a visible level of craftsmanship she could appreciate. But this mess of a browser game, it was barely a step above a PowerPoint presentation. There was nothing to appreciate. Leo simply smiled, understanding her perspective. After all, without the foresight of a reborn person, it was hard for anyone to see the potential and make such a decisive choice. It was true. Browser games looked cheap and poorly made compared to client-based ones. But that wasn't their selling point. Their core appeal lay in providing players with the simplest, most direct path to leveling up and becoming stronger. Players didn't have to think or try hard. They just had to follow the game's rhythm. And at each new stage, they would naturally start spending money. He casually explained the theory to his girlfriend. By the time he looked over, he realized she hadn't responded in a while. His shoulder felt a little heavier. He turned his head, curious, and couldn't help but chuckle. At some point, Miss Sterling had drifted off to sleep, her head resting on his shoulder, and she was sleeping soundly. Who would have thought he actually had the same hypnotic powers as his old high school teachers? Not wanting to disturb her, Leo looked around the booth for a blanket to cover her with. He didn't find one, but a second later, a strong, valuable arm extended toward him, holding out a blanket. Leo? He looked up and met the wise, all-knowing gaze of Mr. Chien. Leo smiled silently and nodded his thanks. Mr. Chien gave him a cool, okay sign, then turned and continued his patrol of the premises. Gently draping the blanket over his sleeping girlfriend, Leo used his free hand to operate the mouse, browsing for more information on browser games. In 2008, these games were still in their infancy. The quality was low, and the gameplay formulas hadn't been perfected. In this area, Leo was confident he could find the right team, build a game quickly, and blow the competition out of the water. But there was another problem. Marketing. Even if you made a high-quality browser game, it could easily get lost in the sea of competitors. Even the best wine needs a good salesman. How could he get his product noticed by enough players to make a splash? That was the critical first question. Leo frowned. He had a plan for this, but it would require waiting for the founder of Happiness to contact him, and then they'd have to negotiate. Besides, he needed a plan B, and even a plan C to be safe. As his thoughts drifted, he absent-mindedly scrolled with the mouse. Without thinking, he clicked a link. An ad popped up on the screen. He was about to close it, but when he saw the first line of text, he froze. It seemed to be the opening of an article or a chapter of a novel. The first line contained only 5 words. Battle Chi, 3rd stage. Author's note. The 3-chapter special. Remember to send reminders and gifts. Battle Chi, 3rd stage. The incredibly familiar opening line of the novel appeared before him. And in that instant, Leo not only recognized it, but also had a flash of inspiration, as if he'd been enlightened. He had it. This trip to the Gilded Phoenix was worth it after all. It had given him the perfect idea. He had been racking his brain, trying to figure out how to solve the biggest problem. Marketing. In this wild, early era of browser games, it was too easy for a new game to be drowned out by the competition. It needed to be seen, to be discovered before its quality could even matter. Conventional advertising was expensive, and he didn't have that kind of cash. Plus, even if he did, the effectiveness of the ads themselves was always a gamble. But the moment that ad popped up on his screen, Leo realized the problem had just solved itself. The answer had been there all along, simple and waiting for him to find it. Web novels. The memory came flooding back. Leo remembered that in his past life, around 2008 or 2009, a group of top-tier web novel authors had collaborated to create a series of browser-based games. While it hadn't made huge waves in the industry, that was mostly due to their lack of game development experience. Even so, Leo recalled that the games had brought in massive profits for the authors involved. Using a novel's IP as the foundation to create a custom-tailored browser game. That way, the game would have a built-in audience of fans from day one. And if the authors promoted it, they could precisely funnel their readers directly to the game. The marketing effectiveness would be off the charts. And on the other hand, the biggest advantage was that it would save a ton of money. At that moment, a fire was burning in Leo's eyes. This is the advantage of being reborn. This is it. An ordinary person would have limited vision when it came to choosing a novel's IP. They'd have to wait until a book became a massive hit before trying to negotiate a deal, and by then, the price would be astronomical. But he was different. In his past life, as a top-tier bachelor, his primary way of passing the time was reading web novels. He was a die-hard fan. From middle school through his working years, he had spent over a decade reading. He knew almost every hit novel from every year, from fantasy and sci-fi to urban and cultivation genres, and even some of those rural romance stories. Ahem. What was he thinking? He, Leo Hammer Wallace, had never read anything risque. He was a respectable man. In short, with his foresight as a reborn person and a veteran web novel reader, he could identify the future potential of various hit novels long before they actually blew up. Armed with that advantage, negotiating for the IP rights would be a breeze. And of all the novels out there, he already knew which one he wanted to secure first. His gaze fell on the ad pop-up on the screen, at the opening line that was as familiar as his own name. Outwardly, he remained calm. Inwardly, the tiny cartoon version of him was grinning from ear to ear. Holy crap. For my first browser game, I'll just make one for Battle Through the Heavens. I'm going to make so much money, it's not even funny. In 2008, the concept of paid reading was just starting to mature, and in the web novel world, the idea of IP rights barely existed. At most, game and movie adaptations were just beginning to gain traction, but that was mainly for client-based online games and had nothing to do with browser games. More importantly, Leo remembered clearly that at this time, most novel copyrights were held by the rights departments of web fiction platforms like the fictional Scrollverse. When they sold these rights, they had no real concept of their value. An ordinary novel's rights could be had for a few $1,000s. You could even get a discount for buying in bulk. As for browser game rights, the price was even lower. And, most importantly, Battle Through the Heavens had only been recently published. Leo knew that this future God-tier novel wouldn't experience its first viral explosion of popularity until 2009-2010. That was when mobile reading platforms took off and reader numbers grew exponentially. It was then that the book became a true phenomenon, earning its author six-figure daily subscription revenues on mobile platforms alone. But that time hadn't come yet. The author hadn't yet ascended to God-tier status, and this book was just getting started. Its fan base hadn't really formed. In other words, this was the perfect time to strike. With a flick of his wrist, Leo moved the mouse and quickly opened the Scrollverse website. He found the page for Battle Through the Heavens and clicked on it. Just as he expected, it had only been updated to around 300,000 to 400,000 words. The story's first major climax, the return to the Yunlan sect to fulfill the 3-year promise, was still a long way off. Once that part was written, the book's popularity and success would skyrocket. But for now, no one knew that. Looking at the novel's content, Leo's eyes were practically sparkling with golden dollar signs. Money, it's all money. He had found the solution, and the problem was solved. Leo relaxed completely, his mood soaring. He felt a little excited and clicked on the first chapter, ready to reread the story. He read with a grin, shaking his head in admiration. It was so well written. Even by the standards of his future life, it was still brilliant. The broken engagement trope, the raw emotion, the young hero's rise. 30 years the tide may fall, but 30 years it will rise again. Never scorn the young. He made a decision on the spot. When a browser game was released, he would put that exact line on the payment page. Wouldn't that get the players fired up and spending like crazy? TSK, perfect. He was completely lost in his own world, and he didn't notice the head resting on his shoulders stir slightly. Just as he was staring at the screen with gleaming eyes, scrolling through the plot of Battle Through the Heavens for more marketing inspiration. A cool, pleasant voice suddenly sounded in his ear. "What are you doing?" He snapped back to reality and turned toward the sound. He was met with his girlfriend's bright, alert eyes. Bertha Sue was awake. Leo scratched his head. "Oh, nothing. Just reading a novel." Claire glanced at her boyfriend, then at the novel on the screen. A legitimate novel? Leo gave his girlfriend a rough outline of the situation, briefly explaining his idea. While Claire didn't understand games or novels, she effortlessly grasped the business logic behind it. Targeted, precise traffic diversion. If the target was chosen correctly, it would indeed be far more effective than conventional advertising. Of course, this was all contingent on him finding a novel with a reasonably priced license and a sufficiently large and passionate fan base. Claire glanced at the novel's page on the screen again. The title caught her eye. Battle Through the Heavens. She raised an eyebrow slightly. Even as someone who didn't read much fiction, she had heard of this title in her past life. It seemed to have been adapted into games, movies, and an animated series. After all, if even an outsider like her had heard of it, it must have been quite popular. Claire looked at Leo. "You're planning to choose this one?" Leo nodded with righteous conviction. "Yep, I have a feeling this one has potential." Of course, he couldn't tell her that he was a reborn person who knew the book's future was incredibly bright. He could only offer one explanation. Intuition. Claire nodded slightly, a look of approval on her face. "I think so, too." She hadn't expected her boyfriend to have such good taste in novels. It was almost on par with her own as a reborn person. Now, it was Leo's turn to be puzzled. Bertha Sue didn't seem like a novel reader, yet her judgment was this sharp. "How can you tell?" he asked tentatively. Her response was the same as his, delivered with a perfectly straight face. Intuition. The two clueless reborn individuals, each with their own secret, looked at each other and nodded in mutual, matter-of-fact agreement. Reasonable. With just a few simple words, the couple finalized their plan to scoop up the rights to the future star author's masterpiece. Then, under the envious, jealous, and pupil-quaking gazes of the entire land center, the newly awakened girl leaned naturally against Leo, finding the most comfortable position in his arms to read the novel with him. Leo gave her a brief rundown of the plot. A young genius becomes a piece of trash, then suffers the humiliation of a broken engagement. And at the scene of the engagement's dissolution, the protagonist roars the classic line about not scorning the young for being poor. Claire raised an eyebrow and offered a cool critique. If you don't like someone, just break up. Being a condescending jerk about it is a bit much. Leo laughed. It's for the plot. To be fair, the girl isn't actually that bad. And having a female character like that gives readers a stronger desire for conquest and revenge. His words inadvertently steered them into dangerous territory. Miss Sterling glanced at him. So, which female character do you like more? Sunner or Nayland? Her tone was casual, but it hid a murderous intent. Leo froze, his clever brain instantly kicking into high gear. Objectively speaking, Sunner, with her powerful family background and deep love for the protagonist, was a perfect match for his own girlfriend. Therefore, the answer was obvious. I don't like either of them, he declared with an air of absolute righteousness. I only have eyes for you. Listen to that. Where's the applause? Where are the cheers? That is the response of a high EQ boyfriend with a powerful survival instinct. Claire shot her boyfriend a sideways glance and commented coolly, such a smooth talker. But the slight upward curve of her lips betrayed her pleasant mood. Leo continued to profess his sincerity. I mean every word. Inwardly, the tiny cartoon version of him was wiping away cold sweat. Close call. Thank goodness my brain works fast. Having placated his girlfriend, he felt a wave of relief. But he also found himself subconsciously mulling over her question. Sunner or Nayland? Who to choose? What a joke. Obviously, you choose the one with the big assets. The Yun and Medusa faction raises its banner high. After sitting in the booth for a while longer, it was getting late, so the couple cashed out. They said goodbye to Mr. Chen at the front desk and left the land center hand in hand, followed by 100 pairs of envious, hateful eyes. He walked Claire back to her dorm. Downstairs, the girl looked at him and raised an eyebrow. No words were needed. The meaning was clear. Time for today's session of soft interaction, plus review, plus weight loss. The code words had evolved through countless iterations, but in the end, it all came down to one thing. A kiss. Under the soft, warm glow of the lamppost in front of the dorm, the boy wrapped his arms around the girl's slender waist and leaned down to kiss her. It wasn't fiery, but gentle and lingering. After a long moment, their lips parted. They were both left wanting more, ready for another review session, when a timid voice came from behind them. Can I get through, please? Leo and Claire turned in surprise to see a girl holding a wash basin and clothes, looking at them nervously. She had just come from the showers. A quick glance revealed that they were blocking the entrance to the dormitory. They quickly apologized and moved aside, watching as the girl, who had just been force-fed a huge dose of PDA, scurried away. Leo and Claire looked at each other and couldn't help but share an embarrassed smile. I'm going now. Wait. Suddenly, the girl took a step forward, stood on her toes, and gently pressed another kiss to her boyfriend's lips. Then she stepped back, hands behind her back, a serene smile on her face. Good night. Leo touched his lips and couldn't help but smile back. Good night. In downtown Berkeley, inside the CEO's office on the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings headquarters, the middle-aged man at the desk suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose, a little puzzled. Why do I suddenly feel a chill? Like something's not right. He quickly dismissed the feeling, and his expression returned to normal. Looking at the young man sitting across from him, Charles Sterling's face broke into a warm, fatherly smile. Wyatt, you're back. I haven't seen you in years. You've grown into a fine young man. Wyatt Way, sitting respectfully opposite him, also smiled and nodded sincerely. Yes, it's been a long time, Uncle Sterling. The big brother with no money for smokes and the rich young master who mooched a meal at the station had finally met again. Author's note. I'll try for a third chapter tonight. Remember to hit the reminder and send little gifts. The Sterling and Way families have been friends for generations. For Wyatt Way, coming to Berkeley meant it was both proper and necessary to pay his respects to Charles Sterling. With his excellent upbringing, he would never neglect such etiquette. Besides, it was just a meeting with Uncle Sterling. That demoness Claire wasn't in Berkeley anyway. So what was there to be afraid of? Inwardly, a tiny cartoon version of himself struck a triumphant pose. Outwardly, Wyatt remained polite, composed, and courteous, even standing to pour tea for Charles. "Uncle Sterling, please have some tea." Charles didn't stop him, smiling as he watched the young man pour. He took the cup, sipped it, and looked at Wyatt. "Just back in the country? How are your grandfather and your parents?" Wyatt sat properly, answering with flawless composure. "They're all well. My grandfather is recuperating at West Mountain Hospital. My parents are the same as always." He paused on the last sentence. Only because he was with a close family elder did he let a hint of his true feelings show, a faint, self-deprecating smile touching his lips. Charles knew the Way family situation. Seeing Wyatt's expression, he shook his head and sighed. "Your parents? I'm not one to judge, but regardless, you, my boy, are a kid I've always been very fond of." He looked at Wyatt, a genuine smile on his face. "As for Claire's future, I don't plan to interfere too much. Her happiness is what matters most. However, if I had to choose, you, my boy, would be at the very top of my list of ideal sons-in-law." Wyatt paused at Charles's words. He looked up, meeting his gaze, and the heir to the Way family adopted a solemn expression. "You flatter me, Uncle Sterling. It's an honor that you think so highly of me. But to be perfectly honest with you, I personally have no romantic feelings for the demon." Ahem. I mean, he quickly corrected himself with an embarrassed cough. "What I mean is, I have no romantic feelings for Claire." Charles raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and why is that? Is my precious daughter not good enough? Not worthy of you?" As he spoke, the Sterling patriarch's tone became stern, his presence radiating the immense pressure of the chairman of Sterling Holdings. Yet even under such sudden, intense questioning, Wyatt's expression remained calm and unchanged. "No, Claire is wonderful. The problem is with me. Because I don't want to be used as a punching bag anymore. Because I want to live." Inwardly, his cartoon self slammed a table in protest. Outwardly, the poised heir of the Way family simply smiled at Charles and posed a counter-question. "Besides, with Claire's qualities, she could have anyone she wants. Are you not confident in your own daughter, Uncle Sterling?" It was a brilliant, watertight deflection, turning Charles's own words back on him. "It's not that I think Claire isn't good enough. Is it that you, her father, think she isn't?" He had no idea his counterattack would land with such devastating force, instantly plunging the chairman of Sterling Holdings into a pit of despair. "Who the hell says I'm not confident? It's because I'm too confident. That some damn punk was able to sneak in and steal my home." Honestly, Charles Sterling wasn't in a rush to see his daughter married off. But in his eyes, almost no boy her age was worthy of her. Especially not that punk. He had spirited his daughter away without a word, and now she defended him so fiercely. He must have taken advantage of her innocence and fed her some kind of love potion. So, his goal right now wasn't to find his daughter a boyfriend. It was purely and simply to rescue his foolish daughter from that punk's clutches. And in this situation, the Way boy was the perfect tool. Whether they dated or not didn't matter. As long as he drove that punk away. Oh, and that young fellow he met half a year ago, the one who borrowed money for cigarettes, he was nice too. A pity he already had a girlfriend named Bertha. Of course, he couldn't force the issue. Charles calmed himself and changed the subject. "Let's not talk about that. Now that you're back, have you seen Claire yet?" Wyatt visibly relaxed. "Not yet. I'll be staying here in Berkeley for school now. With Claire's grades, she must have easily gotten into an Ivy League school. She's probably on the East Coast by now. Oh, what a shame. Looks like we won't be seeing each other for a while." He feigned disappointment, but the corners of his mouth were practically twitching, threatening to break into a massive grin. "One on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. Come and get me now, Demonis." "Ha ha ha. The East Coast." Charles blinked. He looked Wyatt up and down, a strange expression on his face. He didn't deny it. Instead, he just nodded. "Oh, that's not important. Anyway, you should give her a call. Let her know you're in town. It'd be good for you two to catch up." Wyatt nodded enthusiastically. A phone call was no problem. No matter how powerful the Demonis was, she couldn't crawl through the phone line to beat him up. "Of course. I'll contact her soon." He even gave Charles a bright smile. "Don't you worry, Uncle Sterling." Charles's smile was even wider than Wyatt's. "Worry? Of course not. I'm not worried at all. Hot damn. This is what it feels like to have God mode cheats enabled. Being omniscient is pretty great." The one person who truly had God mode cheats enabled was currently standing in the hallway outside the CEO's office. The moment he saw the heir to the Way family, his mind flashed back to the cold command from his young mistress, complete with a throat-slitting gesture. "Take care of it." He had almost rolled up his sleeves and charged in to complete his mission right then and there. But he was stopped by the middle-aged man who was now standing opposite him. Mr. Joe's eyes narrowed, his pupils reflecting the familiar figure before him. He spoke calmly. Chun. The man standing a short distance away was unremarkable, with a plain, square face. It was the same man who had been by Wyatt Way's side at West Mountain Hospital, the one known as Mr. Chun. Mr. Chun looked up. His eyes met those of the man he once considered his greatest rival, the trusted confidant of the Sterling patriarch. A burning desire for battle ignited in his gaze. He spoke each word with precision. The conversation between uncle and nephew was warm and enthusiastic, though both had their own ulterior motives. On the surface, however, their smiles couldn't have been brighter. Walking out of the Sterling Holdings headquarters, Wyatt Way let out a long sigh of relief. Even for him, facing the chairman of Sterling Holdings was no small feat. Although the man had treated him with familial warmth, his shrewdness and authority still exerted a subtle but immense pressure. Especially the way he looked at him. It was like he was looking at a prize fool. The thought made Wyatt's lip twitch. Something fell off. Had he just been played? He shook his head, dismissing the feeling. I'm probably overthinking it. Mr. Chun, following close behind, noticed his young master's expression and asked in a low voice, Young master, did the talk with Mr. Sterling not go well? Wyatt waved his hand. It wasn't that it went poorly. It's just that being with Uncle Sterling feels the same as being with my grandfather back home. In our Way family, no one in my father's generation has that kind of presence. Mr. Chun listened with a solemn expression and nodded slowly. Mr. Sterling is indeed a titan among men, a true magnate. Wyatt shook his head and sighed. A titan of the entire state's business world. So why in the world is he so fond of me? Mr. Chun paused, then understood. Mr. Sterling also hopes that you and the young Miss Sterling. Gazing at the distant city lights, Wyatt looked melancholic. This is the burden of being too outstanding. I think I've figured it out now. Uncle Sterling is so eager to pair me with the demoness. She must still be single. As if recalling some childhood trauma, he shivered. That makes sense. Who would dare to be your boyfriend? She's terrifying. Then he sighed in relief again. But it's fine. She's going to school on the East Coast. She won't be able to bother me for a while. But then again, what if she comes back looking for me one day? The thought made Wyatt's expression turn serious and alert. He turned to his bodyguard. Mr. Chun, you saw that bodyguard, Joe. Could you take him? At the question, Mr. Chun took a deep breath, his own expression turning grave. That man, he is even more unfathomable than he was back then. Wyatt knew of the Sterling family bodyguard's legendary past and was taken aback by this assessment. He's even stronger than before? Mr. Chun nodded grimly. I can't see through him now. Wyatt sucked in a sharp breath. What do you mean? The former Special Forces soldier, now a Way family protector, frowned deeply. He seems to have mastered a new technique. Wyatt blinked. A new technique? What kind? Mr. Chun chose his words carefully, offering his professional judgment. Some kind of ocular power. On the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings building, Mr. Joe entered the CEO's office to find Charles Sterling admiring the city lights from his floor-to-ceiling window. Hearing the door open, Charles turned and smiled. Catching up with that Chin fellow? Mr. Joe nodded respectfully. We spoke for a bit. The chairman was unusually curious. I heard you two were old rivals in the military. Haven't seen each other in years. Didn't feel like a little sparring session? Mr. Joe paused, nodded, then shook his head. We didn't fight. He added with a complicated expression. I scared him off. I never imagined my pupil-quaking technique could be used this way. Charles looked surprised, then chuckled. Well, it seems you're still the better man. Mr. Joe nodded steadily. It's all thanks to your training, sir. Mostly thanks to your daughter's training. Charles didn't dwell on it. He looked back out the window, sighing wistfully. That Wyatt kid. I haven't seen him in years, but he's really grown up. You can tell right away he's exceptional for his age. A pretty good match for Claire, don't you think? The former Special Forces operative wisely chose not to answer. That was a trick question you just didn't touch. The chairman didn't seem to mind, continuing his monologue. When they were kids, Claire used to bully him pretty badly. If it'd get together, at least I wouldn't have to worry about her being taken advantage of. And that was all just childhood stuff, anyway. She's grown up now. She's become as graceful and reasonable as her mother was. When she sees her childhood friend again, she probably won't be as mischievous as she used to be. As he said this, a look of paternal pride washed over his face. Mr. Joe. He once again pictured his young mistress making a throat-slitting gesture at him as she gave her nonchalant order. She's definitely not mischievous anymore. Now she just goes for the kill, literally trying to physically eliminate people. Unaware of his trusted subordinate's internal monologue, Charles's face lit up with a happy thought. That Wyatt kid, he still thinks Claire is studying on the East Coast. He's in for a real surprise when he finally sees her. He looked at Mr. Joe and gave an order. Don't tell Claire about this yet. Girls can be shy when they grow up and reconnect with a childhood friend. We'll just let Wyatt call her and surprise her. Mr. Joe nodded with a steady expression. Yes, sir. You can count on me. That night, in room 205 of Berkeley's dormitory 16, the supposedly shy young lady stared at her phone, where her trusted bodyguard had just sent his timely intelligence report. Her eyes narrowed. She sat up on her top bunk, expertly snapped a selfie, and sent it via picture message. The familiar, cool picture of her making a throat-slitting gesture was once again successfully delivered to her driver's phone. There was no text. None was needed. Putting her phone away, the young Miss Sterling laid back down, a dangerous glint in her eyes. She muttered to herself, Wyatt the punching bag. You actually dare to show up. At that same moment, in the other beds, Molly, Quinn, and Jade all shivered for no reason. They looked around in confusion, glancing at the air conditioner on the wall. What the? Is the AC broken? It's not even on cool. Meanwhile, in room 520 of dormitory 37, Leo was also lying in bed, still awake. He was mapping out his plan for the browser game, trying to clarify every step. If he could secure the novel's IP rights, half the battle would be won. But before he could even start negotiating, he had to solve the biggest problem, startup capital. He checked the date. It was late February. The founder of Happy Nest, that Mr. Chung, should be getting in touch any day now. In Leo's memory, the founder of Happy Nest, Mr. Chung, had worked at a major tech company for 10 years, managing everything from web technology to mobile development. He left in February 2008. By March, he had founded Happy Nest, the social media site that would launch the viral vegetable-stealing game that swept the nation. By his calculation, Mr. Chung should have already quit his job and be in the middle of frantic preparations for his new company's launch. That meant a critical task like securing a website domain had to be an urgent priority. Leo frowned. There were only 3 reasons why he hadn't been contacted yet. 1, he had misremembered the launch date of Happy Nest, and the man wasn't in a hurry. 2, his interference had altered the timeline, and Mr. Chung had decided to use a different domain name. 3, the guy was still hesitating, but would make a decision any day now. Leo was certain it wasn't the first option. His memory was excellent. He wouldn't forget the details from the feature article he'd read about the company. The second option was also unlikely. His actions hadn't been significant enough to cause such a major change. The butterfly effect wasn't that powerful. The domain was still listed for sale on the marketplace. The most likely scenario was the third one. So, Leo took a slow breath and made a decision. Stay calm and wait a little longer. Easier said than done. That night, after the dorm lights went out, he found it hard to sleep. This wasn't just about making his first big score since being reborn. Making a connection with the founder of Happy Nest was a crucial part of his larger business plan. He couldn't help but feel a little anxious. But then he caught himself and chuckled wryly. I've been reborn, and my mental fortitude is still this weak. A great man should remain calm in the face of great challenges. He was getting worked up over a small variable at the very beginning. He was an embarrassment to reborn people everywhere. He needed more training. Of course, training one's mind takes time. For tonight, he'd have to rely on a little external help. A moment later, he calmly pulled out a thin, silky, black strip-like object, placed it under his pillow, and rested his head on it comfortably. A thoughtful contribution from Miss Bertha Sue over winter break. His personal sleep aid. News from Happy Nest had yet to arrive, but a certain former Special Forces operative did. On Friday, after their classes, Leo and Claire returned to the LNS house by the beach. They found Mr. Chin there, who had brought them some new potted plant from his shop to decorate the yard. Oh, I opened a flower shop, Mr. Chin explained matter-of-factly. He handed 2 small pots to Leo and Claire. This one is perfect for you too. It's called a Sweetheart Hoya, also known as a Valentine's Hoya. Before he could finish, a certain former Special Forces operative walked through the front gate, carrying the small, custom-made safe his young mistress had requested. He arrived just in time to hear the last part of Mr. Chin's sentence. Mr. Chin looked up and saw the bodyguard. He paused, then corrected himself without batting an eye. My mistake. This is a classmate's Hoya. Mr. Joe. The 2 men's gazes met, and sparks flew in the air between them. One fell an itch in his teeth, vowing to find a chance to beat this guy up. The other stood there calmly, as if to say, go ahead and try. I dare you. Claire directed Mr. Joe to take the safe upstairs to the master bedroom, then followed him excitedly, ready to store the Wallace family jade bracelet that she would only wear if the Queen of England came to visit. Leo stayed in the living room. His phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen. The caller ID read, Big Brother with no money for smokes. Slightly surprised, he answered, Hey, Big Brother. The hearty laughter of a certain Chairman Sterling came through the phone. My boy, how have you been? After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Leo could tell his big brother was in a good mood and asked him about it. His question hit the nail on the head. Charles Sterling let out another booming laugh and generously shared the news. A nephew of mine just got back from overseas. He's a perfect match for my precious daughter. I'm going to arrange for them to meet. The second he shows up, I guarantee he'll put that punk kid to shame. That punk will be so humiliated he'll run off with his tail between his legs. Then my daughter will be safe. Leo understood immediately and offered his sincere congratulations. That's great news. Congratulations. Just then, Mr. Joe came out of the master bedroom and called his own boss from the top of the stairs. Charles, still on the phone with Leo, saw the incoming call. Hold on a second, my boy. I have to take this. Sure, Leo said, understanding. Charles put him on hold and switched to the other line. Mr. Joe, standing on the second-floor landing, spoke respectfully. Mr. Sterling, I've arrived at the young Mrs. house. I delivered some things for her. I'll be heading back a little late tonight. His boss acknowledged, telling him not to rush and to stay the night, to keep an eye on his daughter and make sure that punk kid didn't try anything. It was a familiar routine. Mr. Joe calmly agreed. The call ended. Charles switched back to Leo. His hearty laugh echoed through the phone again. All right, my boy, where were we? Let's continue. Leo chuckled along. We were talking about your daughter finally getting rid of that punk. Neither Leo downstairs nor the bodyguard upstairs noticed the other's phone call. The only person who did was Mr. Chien, who had just come inside from arranging the plants. He had witnessed the entire, seamless exchange. He glanced at Leo on the phone, then at the bodyguard upstairs, who had just hung up. Finally, his eyes landed on the girl coming out of the upstairs bedroom. Mr. Chien's gaze darted between the three of them, his brow furrowing deeper and deeper. Then, as if he'd suddenly figured it out, a look of incredulous realization dawned on his face. When Leo finished his call and put his phone away, he turned and saw the strange expression on Mr. Chien's face. What's wrong, Mr. Chien? Mr. Chien thought for a moment, then said nonchalantly, Nothing. Just thought of something interesting. He reached out and clapped Leo warmly on the shoulder. Stay on good terms with that guy you were on the phone with. It could be very useful for you. Then, ignoring Leo's confused expression, Mr. Chien turned, clasped his hands behind his back, and sauntered off like a worldly sage, humming a little tune. A true sage, always doing good deeds without seeking recognition. Author's note. I'll try for a 3-chapter special tonight. Daily requests for reminders and little gifts. Like a worldly sage, Mr. Chien made his grand exit, leaving the former Special Forces operative behind to follow his boss's orders and stay the night. Mr. Joe had made the long trip from the city to the coast just to deliver a safe. It was a lot of trouble. Feeling a little guilty, his young mistress, Bertha Sue, decided there was only one way to show her appreciation. She would cook him dinner. The bodyguard, who had just sat down on the sofa to rest his eyes, shot up as if he'd been electrocuted. Miss, I have a prior engagement. I don't think I can stay the night after all. This wasn't a thank you. This was a death threat, a clear signal for him to get lost and not disturb the young couple's private time together. No, wait. Their private classmate friendship study session. Fortunately, Leo quickly intervened, stopping his girlfriend. He cleared his throat and said casually, It's fine. It wasn't that much trouble for Mr. Joe. He doesn't deserve such a prestigious honor as you cooking for him. I'll do it. The bodyguard, his life just saved, looked at Leo as if he were a messiah. He was so moved he was on the verge of tears. What a great kid. I, Joe, will defend this ship with my life. I'll tear that way kid to shreds for you. He quickly snapped back to reality and vigorously agreed with Leo. Yes, yes. Miss, you're cooking. Not just anyone is worthy of such a treat. I am a man of humble fortune and cannot bear such an honor. Your dishes should be reserved for more important guests. The two of them praised Claire's culinary skills to the high heavens, almost convincing Bertha Sue herself. The girl, who possessed every virtue from calmness and intelligence to shrewdness and brilliance, had a single blind spot: her own cooking. Flushed with rare pleasure at their praise, she hesitated. But if neither of you will eat it, who am I supposed to cook for? Without a second thought, Leo declared with righteous conviction, at the very least, someone on the level of the Queen of England. He was quoting his girlfriend's own words back at her. Mr. Joe, standing nearby, was stunned. He glanced at Leo, then at his young mistress, and took a sharp, cold breath. The Queen of England eating the young Miss's food? Wouldn't that cause an international incident? In the end, thankfully, Leo was the one who went to the kitchen. Claire and Mr. Joe were left sitting in the living room. With nothing better to do, Claire thought of her jade bracelet, now safely in its new vault, and felt the urge to look at it again. Since Mr. Joe was there, she might as well show it to him. A few moments later, the familiar, milky green jade bracelet was carefully placed on a silk handkerchief and presented to Mr. Joe, held in the girl's two hands. Her tone was casual, as if she were just making small talk. Take a look. A gift from my mother-in-law. Nothing too valuable. Just a happy coincidence that it's a Wallace family heirloom, passed down to every Wallace daughter-in-law. It's no big deal. Every word was an understatement. Every word was a heavy emphasis. As she spoke, her clear, bright eyes were fixed on her bodyguard, watching for his reaction with feigned indifference but obvious anticipation. The poor former Special Forces operative nearly had a heart attack at the words mother-in-law. When he understood the meaning of the bracelet, a tsunami crashed through his mind. He struggled to contain the violent quaking of his pupils while racking his brain for the most solemn and serious praise he could offer. As expected of you, miss. This bracelet is a very bracelet-like bracelet. He continued to praise it until his young mistress was satisfied. Bertha Sue then serenely took the bracelet and went upstairs to put it back in the safe. Mr. Joe was left sitting on the sofa, dazed and staring into space. How long have I been away from the young mistress? Heirloom bracelets and official daughter-in-law declarations are already happening. How much homework have I missed? For dinner, Leo's culinary skills were as reliable as ever, producing a table full of delicious, aromatic dishes. Unfortunately, a certain former Special Forces operative was too distracted to eat. As soon as he finished, he excused himself and rushed to the guest room, where he hunched over a desk and began scribbling furiously in his little intelligence notebook. He had so much homework to catch up on. He felt like a student at the end of vacation, frantically trying to finish all his assignments. He racked his brain, trying to figure out how to phrase everything. Wallace family heirloom bracelet equals a thoughtful little gift from a close classmate's parents. Official daughter-in-law declaration equals the young miss gets along with her classmate's parents as if they were family. Plan to empty the wine cellar equals the young miss is concerned about her father's health. And what about these new terms, review and weight loss? Sitting at the desk, the bodyguard chewed on his pen, his mind slowly breaking. This sterling family salary is really hard to earn. With Mr. Joe resting in the guest room, Leo and Claire didn't rush upstairs. It was still early. Since it was the weekend, they cleaned up in the kitchen, then curled up comfortably on the living room sofa to watch a movie. The movie itself was unimportant. What mattered was the warm, wonderful feeling of being nestled together. Holding his girlfriend's soft, fragrant body, Leo's mind began to wander. He was subconsciously still thinking about the browser game and the domain sale. It was nearly the end of February. That founder, Mr. Chung, was certainly playing it cool. In his arms, the girl sensed her boyfriend's distraction. She tilted her head up to look at him. What are you thinking about? Leo snapped out of it, smiled, and held her a little tighter. Nothing. Just playing a waiting game. Fine. We'll see who blinks first. I'm not in a hurry. The next day, Saturday, he woke up to two pieces of news. The first came from the group chat for the residents of room 205 and room 520. Molly announced that tomorrow was her birthday and planned for everyone to go into the city to celebrate. The news was a happy surprise for everyone. Molly, with her slightly ditzy personality, had almost forgotten until her boyfriend, Leon, happened to ask. A birthday was always better celebrated with good friends. The group chat immediately exploded with enthusiastic agreement. The second piece of good news was for Leo personally. That morning, after washing up, he habitually picked up his phone, opened the browser, and checked his account on the domain marketplace. In his inbox, there was a new message. The sender's ID was a simple string of letters, Chung. The man who, in his past life, had seen his personal net worth soar into the hundreds of millions in just 6 months. The founder of Happy Nest. He had finally made his move. Author's note, the 3-chapter special, shyly asking for reminders and gifts. Early morning at the LNS house. The bathroom. Standing before the vanity mirror, Leo Wallace held his phone, took a deep breath, and opened his inbox on the domain marketplace's website. Just as he expected, a message from the user account Chung popped into view. The text was concise, just a few words. Price for Happiness 001. Straight to the point, no negotiation tactics whatsoever. Since it was the only domain Leo had listed, and he hadn't set a price, the buyer couldn't feign casual indifference or beat around the bush the way Leo had with that domain squatter. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. As someone who'd lived this life before, Leo knew exactly what the buyer was thinking long before the message ever arrived. A smile touched Leo's lips as he looked at the message. He quickly typed out a reply. You offer. Just as concise. 2 words. After all, this wasn't an AIM chat. The other party wouldn't see it instantly. It would take some time to get a response. But a weight had already lifted from Leo's shoulders. He was sure of it now. All I needed was for you to ask. Now that you have, you're not getting away. Just then, a slender, porcelain-white hand pushed the bathroom door open from the outside. Claire Sterling walked in, ready to start her morning routine. Seeing him standing in front of the sink with a goofy grin, she couldn't help but look puzzled, her eyes scanning her boyfriend from head to toe. What are you smiling about in the bathroom first thing in the morning? Leo snapped back to reality, put his phone away, and replied with a smile. Oh, nothing. Just thought of something that made me happy. Isn't it Molly's birthday soon? He added, tossing out a casual excuse. Naturally, his star student girlfriend wasn't convinced. Claire's suspicion only grew, and her beautiful eyes sized him up again. Is that so? Are you and Molly that close? Leo was in such a good mood that her skeptical tone didn't faze him in the slightest. Of course not. You and I are the closest people in the entire world. Before she could react, he wrapped an arm around her slim waist, pulled her close, and lowered his head to kiss her. It was so sudden. Claire didn't even have time to move. A soft gasp escaped her lips just as it sealed them. And then, naturally, she forgot all about her questions, her mind completely surrendering to the unexpected, passionate morning kiss. After a long moment, they parted. Claire was a little breathless, her chest rising and falling. A faint blush colored her cheeks as she shot him a look that was both annoyed and fond. You little wolf. So eager this early. I haven't even brushed my teeth yet. Having celebrated with a taste of his girlfriend's sweetness, Leo was feeling ecstatic. He answered with righteous indignation, It's fine. I brushed. My mouth is sweet. The young couple continued their intimate moment in the bathroom with the door wide open. And so, the scene was witnessed in its entirety by a certain former Special Forces operative who had just walked down the hallway. A new code phrase, is it? Understood. Unflappable as ever, Mr. Joe, who had seen it all, took out his little intelligence notebook. He began to write with swift, practice strokes. Debriefing. Miss Sterling and classmate, 1/5. Note, classmate's mouth is sweet. A short while later, the young couple and the middle-aged bachelor were sitting at the dining table downstairs, eating breakfast. Because of the message from that Mr. Chung, the founder of Happiness, Leo's good mood was still going strong. As they ate, he kept putting food into his girlfriend's bowl, doting on her endlessly. It made Claire a little curious. What was with this dummy today? So cheerful. Leo didn't explain, just offered a mysterious smile. I had a dream. I dreamt that the first step of my plan to get rich is about to succeed. As he spoke, he noticed a tiny grain of rice clinging to the corner of his girlfriend's mouth. You've got some rice on your lip. Before Claire could wipe it away, he had already volunteered his services. It's okay, I'll help you. The next second, he leaned forward. As the pupils of a certain former Special Forces operative across the table contracted in shock, Leo pressed a kiss to the corner of the young woman's lips. When he pulled back, the grain of rice was gone. The subject of the operation, Miss Sterling herself, was taken by surprise. When she came to her senses, she instinctively touched the corner of her mouth, then shot her boyfriend a look that was a mixture of exasperation and amusement. What are you doing? Mr. Joe is watching. It was true. Although they had long since stopped hiding their affection in front of the former operative, this was the first time Leo had been so brazenly forward with his public display of affection. Sitting across from them, Mr. Joe took a deep breath, and then another, his expression calm and composed. It's fine. I didn't see anything. Simultaneously, in his mind, he was already drafting the next entry for his little notebook. Miss Sterling had a grain of rice on her lip during breakfast. Classmate provided enthusiastic assistance. After breakfast, Leo and Claire made plans to go to a nearby mall to buy a birthday gift for Molly. They asked Mr. Joe if he wanted to come along, just to relax on the weekend. At first, the former operative thought it was a good idea. He figured he'd call his boss to report in. He stood up, walked into the living room, and dialed the number. He explained the plan to the man on the other end. Mr. Sterling was very understanding. No problem. It's the weekend. You should take a break. I'll just stay home, drink some tea, read the paper, that sort of thing. The first two sentences didn't raise any flags for Mr. Joe, but the last one triggered something. Mr. Joe froze for a second. Then he heard a rustling sound from the other end of the line, followed by Mr. Sterling's confused voice. Huh? Where did all the newspapers in the house go? A pause. Then Mr. Sterling's cheerful voice came through again. Oh well, I'll just go down to the newsstand and buy a few. I'll see if they have any papers from back home in Northwood while I'm at it. Haven't kept up with Northwood news in a while, huh? All right, Joe, you can hang up. I'm heading downstairs. In an instant, the former Special Forces operative's eyes widened in sheer terror. His soul nearly left his body. He didn't even have time to say goodbye to the young couple behind him. He shot out the front door like an arrow released from a bow. Phone still pressed to his ear, shouting frantically. Mr. Sterling, don't move. A small matter like this. Leave it to me. He burst out the door like an arrow. In less than 3 seconds, he had opened the car door, jumped in, grabbed the steering wheel, and slammed his foot on the gas. The black Maybach, barely awake, was already rocketing down the street, piloted by the Sterling family's driver. Inside, Leo and Claire walked to the doorway, watching the Maybach shrink into a tiny in the distance. They were both slightly stunned. A question mark appeared over Leo's head. He's gone? Just like that. Claire, who likely guessed the truth, remained composed and nodded calmly. Yeah, Mr. Joe probably misses Charles Sterling. He's very dedicated to his work. Leo's expression cleared with understanding. That's Mr. Joe for you. So professional, he said admiringly. Your dad is lucky to have an employee like him. The young woman nodded again, adding her own offhand comment. Mr. Joe is definitely Charles Sterling's greatest liability. Leo, who had been nodding along in agreement, froze at her last few words. Huh. He then watched as his girlfriend corrected herself without batting an eye. Slip of the tongue. I meant his greatest asset. With the third wheel gone, the couple's morning plans proceeded without a hitch. They got changed and ready to go, planning to head to a nearby mall to find a birthday gift for Molly. A short while later, they took a cab to the mall. Most of the shoppers were students from the nearby university campuses, taking a break on the weekend. But since most students were still sleeping in, the mall was relatively quiet, and business was slow. Leo and Claire held hands as they wandered through the mall, checking out a few specialty gift shops, but they didn't find anything suitable. While searching for Molly's gift, they passed a jewelry store. They decided to pop in for a look. The glass display cases were filled with a dazzling array of precious accessories. Necklaces, rings, earrings, and jade bracelets, all glittering and clearly expensive. Leo couldn't help but click his tongue as he looked at the price tags. It really is easy to get money from women. Claire, however, merely glanced over the items with a detached air. Not as good as the bracelet Mom gave me, she said calmly. Making such a comment inside the store was asking for trouble. But the store manager was experienced. The moment she saw Claire's stunning beauty and refined aura, she knew this was no ordinary customer, not someone her little shop could cater to. She didn't dare be careless. Hearing the young woman's assessment, she wasn't angry at all. Instead, she nodded repeatedly. Yes, of course. You have very high standards, miss. The ordinary pieces in our store probably aren't to your liking. Then, with genuine curiosity, she leaned in. Miss, are you not wearing the bracelet you mentioned? Could you let me have a look, just to broaden my horizons? Her words struck a chord with the young Miss Sterling. A smile appeared on her cool face, though she maintained a reserved tone. It's too valuable. I don't usually wear it out. This only increased the manager's respect. I see. You're right. The more valuable a jade bracelet is, the less you should risk wearing it casually. Do you have a picture? Even a picture would be a treat. The young woman nodded eagerly and started to reach for her phone. No problem. She was halfway there when Leo grabbed her arm and urgently dragged her away. No, we gotta go. Maybe next time. It was just a common jade bracelet. Without the halo of being a Wallace family heirloom, its actual value would probably put it in the mid-tier of the shop at best. Only a silly girl like Bertha Sue, obsessed with the idea of being the most glorious Wallace daughter-in-law, would treat it like a priceless treasure. After leaving the jewelry store, they wandered around the mall for a bit longer. When they came out of a women's clothing store, Claire shook her head, dissatisfied. These are all too formal. So stuffy. Molly wouldn't like any of them. While other girls loved cute clothes, skirts, or jewelry, Molly seemed naturally indifferent to such things. In her own eloquent words, I'm already pretty and cute enough on my own. I don't need other clothes or accessories to add points. Standing at the entrance of the store, Leo and Claire looked at each other. What did Molly like most? The answer was obvious: romance novels. An idea struck Leo. He looked at his girlfriend and suggested, there's an old shopping street next door. I think there's a used bookstore. Claire's eyes lit up. Let's go check it out. Leaving the mall, they went to the adjacent shopping street. The atmosphere immediately shifted from upscale to down to earth. The handmade trinkets at the small stalls were charming and fun. Of course, Leo and Claire had a clear goal. They went straight to the used bookstore. They browsed for a while and found a pleasant surprise: a collection of old-school romance novels from the 1990s. Seeing the delighted look on Claire's face as she pulled a whole stack of them from the shelf, Leo tried to be cautious. Should we keep looking? These are pretty old. Will Molly really like them? Claire paused and glanced at her boyfriend. We're talking about Molly. She's a picky eater, but not a picky reader. If it's a novel, she'll read it. Realization dawned on Leo, and he immediately went to help. Oh, right. Hey, there are some from the 80s over here. They bought a pile of antique romance novels. After paying, they were about to head home, satisfied with their purchase. As they walked toward the intersection, the chirping of birds came from a small shop on the side of the street. Leo followed the sound with his eyes. He saw a sign that read "The Feathered Friend" and several bird cages hanging by the entrance, filled with all sorts of birds. Oh, they sell birds, he mused. But Claire's interest was piqued. Let's go see. With that, she took Leo's hand and gracefully led him toward the shop. Upon entering the shop, they were met with a dazzling array of bird cages and various birds. Claire let go of Leo's hand and walked ahead, her interest captured by the rows of cages. Leo followed, asking curiously, "You like little birds?" He immediately realized that sounded wrong. I mean, actual feathered birds, he quickly corrected. Claire turned back, giving her impure-minded boyfriend a look that was both amused and exasperated. Yes, I used to have one when I was little. They're cute and can be very intelligent. She paused, then looked at him and raised an eyebrow. Guess which kind is my favorite? Leo stroked his chin. This clearly wasn't a dirty joke. What kind of bird would Bertha Sue like? Suddenly, inspiration struck. He recalled that magazine feature he'd read about the future CEO of Sterling Holdings. It had mentioned something on this topic. Her favorite bird was a parrot. Leo asked tentatively. Claire looked surprised, her eyes lingering on him for a moment. How did you know? Leo puffed out his chest and put his hands on his hips. The connection between soulmates, obviously. Claire chuckled, accepting his answer with a nod. She then turned and walked toward a wall of cages on the other side of the shop. That's right. I think parrots are smart, and they can talk. I didn't have many friends when I was little, so I thought having a parrot to chat with would be nice. Her casual words revealed a hint of the loneliness she must have felt as a child. Leo understood, and his heart ached for her. He thought for a moment and asked, "Didn't you have a childhood friend back then? You could have passed the time by using him as a punching bag." Claire nodded in agreement, a touch of regret in her voice. He was quite useful. It's just that he needed a couple of days to recover every time I beat him up. Otherwise, the punching bag might have broken. The couple chatted as they walked over to the section with the parrots. A wide variety of them came into view. The knowledgeable Claire casually gave her boyfriend a quick lesson. These are budgies, the most common kind in the country. You can usually get one for $50 to $100. These are cockatiels. They can whistle, but they're a bit dumb, not great at talking. Not as good as those lovebirds over there. They're pretty and not too expensive. It was an eye-opener for Leo. He never knew there were so many types of parrots. He also realized his girlfriend had really done her homework on the subject. Should we buy one? He suggested. Now that they had the LNS house, keeping a small parrot wouldn't be a problem. If they were busy with classes, they could ask their roommates or mister Chin to help look after it. Claire was clearly tempted. Let's look a little more. She continued her careful inspection of the cages. Finally, she stopped in front of a cage in the corner. Leo leaned in for a look and was immediately impressed. The parrot in this cage was different from the others. It had beautiful gray-blue feathers, a round, chubby head, a pink beak, and a pair of pea-sized, sparkling black eyes. This one's really cute, Leo exclaimed, despite not being a bird enthusiast. Claire nodded, her eyes shining. This is a monk parakeet. They're smart and very social. This one's perfect. It was love at first sight for both of them. Without hesitation, they walked toward the counter at the back of the store to find the owner. When they reached the counter, they found him lazing in a reclining chair, a men's magazine covering his face. Leo did a double take. The scene was too familiar. He was tempted to step outside and check if the shop's full name was the gilded phoenix feathered friend. Fortunately, upon hearing their footsteps, the owner removed the magazine and sat up lazily. See something you like? With the magazine gone, the owner's face was revealed. It wasn't Mr. Chien. He was a man in his 30s or 40s with rugged features, a thick beard, and a free-spirited air. Hearing his question, Claire nodded. Yes. She pointed to the cage in the corner. That one. How much? The bearded owner looked in the direction she was pointing, blinked, and waved his hands dismissively. That one's no good. Pick another. They hadn't expected that response. Leo was taken aback. What's wrong with it? It looks cute, seems fine. The owner stood up with his swagger. You guys don't get it. The breed is fine, but this specific one has issues. As he spoke, he walked over to the cage and casually poked it. This one, it's stubborn, got a bad temper, doesn't listen to anyone. Other parrots learn 10, 20 phrases. This one only knows one. He motioned for Leo and Claire to come closer. Then, right in front of them, he spoke to the little parrot in the cage. Hello. The parrot's sparkling black eyes stared intently at the bearded human before it. Without a moment's hesitation, it squawked back loud and clear, my ass. Leo, ? Claire, ? The bearded owner turned to them, a dark expression on his face, and threw up his hands. See? That's all it knows. Whatever you say to it, that's the reply you get. He turned back to the parrot. Say handsome, my ass. Say beautiful, my ass. Its voice was loud and self-righteous. It even flapped its little wings, looking positively indignant. Leo couldn't help but chuckle. This parrot is quite the cynic. He was about to suggest they pick another one, but Claire's eyes were now fixed on the gray-blue monk parakeet, and they were shining brighter than ever. It's perfect, she said. We'll take it. The bearded owner tried to reason with her. Ma'am, you should really think about it. The other parrots in the store are smart, too. Here, I'll have them show you. He turned to the other cages and shouted, There's a beautiful lady here. Come on, showtime. The next second, the entire pet shop erupted. Every parrot in every cage began to squawk loudly. They got out to buy a birthday gift for Molly and ended up with a new member for the LNS house. Under the astonished gaze of the bearded shop owner, who looked at them as if they were divine beings, Leo and Claire paid for the round-headed monk parakeet. For its breed, the price wasn't steep, $200. According to the owner, this type of parrot usually went for over $500. But because this particular one was so stubborn and only knew its catchphrase, my ass, it had been impossible to sell. Finding a buyer was such a relief that he'd practically given it away. Claire gracefully accepted his explanation. Yes, this little guy and I were meant to be. She cast a cool glance at the small parrot in the cage. The gray-blue, pea-eyed bird shivered and immediately began to nod its head obediently. Right on, right on, right on. Leo and the shop owner watched, amazed and sighing. It wasn't fate. It was a strong survival instinct. After paying, the couple left with the birdcage. The bearded owner saw them to the door and even extended a heartfelt invitation to Claire. Miss, have you ever considered a career path? You make a great animal tamer. Outside the shopping street, the couple walked home. Leo carried the cage, peeking at the newly acquired gray-blue parrot. He stuck a finger inside, trying to tease it. Reasonable. The round-headed parrot in the cage unapologetically turned its head, dodging his touch. It then glared at the male human outside, lifted its head, and declared loudly, my ass. A moment later, Claire, hearing the commotion, turned her head and cast a cool gaze in their direction. My ass. The instant the young woman's eyes landed on the parrot, the stubborn bird underwent a transformation so rapid it left Leo dumbfounded. It went from defiant pride to fawning sycophancy in a single second. It was so sycophantic and eager to please, it was less like a bird and more like a puppy. Reasonable. Leo was speechless. He looked at the parrot with new eyes. What a flexible little creature. You've really maxed out your ability to suck up to the right person, haven't you? Claire, however, was quite pleased. The little guy is very obedient, she remarked. It's not obedience, Leo thought. It's the fear of death. His girlfriend turned to him, a playful eyebrow raised. This is the first pet we're raising together. Our relationship is about to level up. Feeling the pressure, Leo paused, then it hit him. She was right. The progression of a relationship went from holding hands to hugging to kissing, but there were so many more steps. Going on dates, living together, meeting the parents, each was a milestone. Raising a pet together was another one. It signified a deeper, more stable bond, strong enough to accommodate a new little member in their lives. It was a test of trust and responsibility. Subtly, it was also laying the groundwork for a future real new member. The thought sobered him. He had initially treated it as just buying a pet bird, but now he saw it for what it was, an important step in their relationship. He had to take it seriously to show his girlfriend that he was responsible and dependable. He looked at her, his expression as solemn as if he were taking an oath. "Don't worry, I will take full responsibility." His words made Claire freeze for a second before she burst out laughing, gently swatting him. "What are you talking about? It's not that serious." But he remained resolute. "It has to be serious. If I'm a good owner now, I'll be a good father later." His declaration almost sent his girlfriend into another fit of giggles. When she finally composed herself, her eyes settled on him, now filled with a seductive glint. The corners of her lips curved up. Someone's already thinking that far ahead, are they? Feeling a little awkward under her gaze, Leo scratched his head. "I was just saying, it is a bit far off, huh?" But in the next second, she reached out and gently pinched his nose, a radiant smile on her face. "Maybe not that far, and I believe you'll be a good father." They looked at each other and smiled, a warm and tender understanding passing between them. Inside the cage, the round-headed parrot muttered under its breath, "My ass." The sound was quiet, but not quiet enough to escape the sharp ears of a certain young woman. Claire looked at Leo, still smiling. "Of course, don't feel too much pressure. After all, we're just raising a pet, not a real child. If the pet isn't well-behaved." She paused, her tone light and casual. "We can just get rid of it." Her words were enough to make every feather on the round-headed parrot's body stand on end. It flapped its wings frantically, flying wildly around the cage, screeching in terror. "Easy to raise. Easy to raise. Easy to raise. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." Leo was stunned. He stared at the parrot, as if it were some mythical creature. "Holy shit, this little guy has a huge vocabulary. You mean you were faking it this whole time?" Back at the LNS house, Leo looked around and hung the birdcage on a coat rack in the living room, a temporary home for their new member, Reasonable. It was almost noon, time for lunch. Leo was about to head into the kitchen to cook and ask Claire to feed Reasonable some of the birdseed they just bought. Claire readily agreed, but then a new idea seemed to strike her. Besides birdseed, parrots can eat other things, right? It's his first day home. Maybe I should cook something for him myself. On the coat rack, the round-headed parrot in the cage heard its female owner's declaration and immediately burst into sycophantic praise. "So capable, so capable, so capable. I'll eat, I'll eat, I'll eat." Leo stared at the suicidal creature. This thing is really willing to die for a compliment. Kevin Zhao has finally met his match. He was about to talk some sense into it, but then he remembered how the parrot had treated him differently. Suddenly, he had a change of heart. He turned to his girlfriend with a supportive smile. "Okay, you cook for it. A bird has to learn from its mistakes." Leo was busy in the kitchen, and soon, the tempting aroma of food wafted out, filling the living room. The round-headed parrot in the cage grew restless, flapping its wings and pressing its head against the bars, trying to peek into the kitchen. When Leo started bringing out plates of delicious-looking dishes, the parrot's pea-sized eyes grew wider. For the first time in its life, it felt the urge to drool. Leo looked over, smiled, and walked toward the cage with a plate. "Smell good." Reasonable immediately turned its head away, full of haughty disdain. "My ass." Leo wasn't offended. He just nodded calmly. "Fine. You just wait for your portion then." He turned and carried the plate back to the table, under the parrot's longing gaze. Reasonable couldn't help but swallow. But when it saw the human's eyes glance its way again, it puffed out its chest, adopting a proud posture. "I don't accept handouts. I am a noble monk parakeet, and I only recognize the female master of this house. Her food will be just as delicious." The next moment, the kitchen door opened, and a certain young woman emerged with a plate. The round-headed parrot, seeing its mistress, began to flap its wings wildly, hopping up and down in excitement, squawking praises. "So capable, so capable, so capable. Good woman, good woman, good woman." Its vocabulary was on full display. Hearing the compliments from her new pet, Claire couldn't help but smile. She walked over with the plate. "Don't be impatient. I'll feed you now." She approached the cage and held the plate up, her mood cheerful. "Here you go. Have a taste." The gray-blue parrot eagerly came forward, its eyes full of excited anticipation as it looked at the plate. And then, Reasonable froze. On the plate was a colorful blackness. Leo walked over to take a look at his girlfriend's creation. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still couldn't help but suck in a sharp breath. "What is this supposed to be?" Claire's expression was calm, her tone matter-of-fact. "Soybeans, bok choy, and spinach." All things parrots can eat. Good for them. Soybeans, bok choy, and spinach. Familiar ingredients. Leo scanned the plate carefully, but for the life of him, he couldn't find anything that matched his girlfriend's description. It was just a swath of colorful blackness. The round-headed parrot in the cage finally snapped out of its shocked daze. In the next second, it recoiled so fast it almost did a backflip, creating distance. Then it began to fly around the cage in a panic. "Let me out! Let me out! Let me out!" This attitude did not please the mistress of the house. The young woman's brows furrowed slightly as she looked at the new family member. "You're not going to eat?" After a recent string of high praise from her boyfriend and Mr. Joe, Miss Sterling's perception of her own culinary skills had risen to a level she believed was fit only for a queen. She had been kind enough to show off her skills for the new pet, and this was the thanks she got. Her eyes narrowed, a cold glint flashing within them. The panicking parrot suddenly shivered and dropped from midair. It met the young woman's gaze, trembled, and slowly waddled forward. It glanced fearfully at the plate, then looked pleadingly at its mistress, and then at the male human standing beside her, who was clearly enjoying the show. Leo pretended not to notice and turned his head away. The rules of the L&S house: never criticize the mistress's cooking. With no hope of rescue, the round-headed parrot gave up. It looked at the food on the plate with the tragic resolve of a martyr, leaned forward, and took a tiny peck. A small, black, soybean-like morsel went down. The next second, the parrot's pea-sized eyes went wide. Its entire body went rigid, and it fell to the floor of the cage with a thud. Leo and Claire, who were observing from the side, were both stunned. "Was it that good?" Claire wondered aloud. Leo gasped. "Call 911. Thankfully, a moment later, the parrot's eyes shot open. It flapped its wings, soared into the air, and promptly spat out the black bean. Then it flew around the cage like a mad thing, screeching in terror. "Death! Death! Death!" Claire was speechless. Leo let out a sigh of relief. He put his arm around his girlfriend's waist and gave her a reassuring kiss on the cheek. "It's a bird. It doesn't have the good fortune to appreciate true culinary art. You should wait for the Queen of England to visit before you cook again." In the end, Reasonable was given some normal birdseed. The young couple sat down at the table to eat. After the meal, Leo went to the kitchen to do the dishes. Claire was about to join him, but she had another idea. She left the kitchen and went back to the living room to have a serious discussion with a new family member. "Is my cooking really that unappreciated?" From the kitchen, Leo could hear his girlfriend's patient instruction and the parrot's trembling replies. "Ray, sonable, capable woman, and next time for sure." A smile spread across Leo's face. The L&S house was about to get a lot livelier. After finishing the dishes and drying his hands, Leo took out his phone and logged back into the domain marketplace. A new message had arrived. His eyes lit up. He opened it. As expected, it was from Mr. Chung, the founder of Happy Nest. This time, he had made an offer. $8,000. If that works, list it. Leo chuckled. $8,000. For a standard domain name, that was an incredibly generous offer. But he knew it was nowhere near the buyer's actual limit. The lowball offer was just an attempt to hide how badly he needed this specific domain. Too bad. As someone who had lived this life before, Leo could see right through him. He quickly typed out a reply. 2 words. Too low. In his past life, Leo had read an expose about the founder of Happy Nest. The article detailed how he had acquired the Happy Nest 001 domain. It mentioned that while the founder, Mr. Chung, had given up on the original Happy Nest .com domain because the seller's price was too high and the terms were unacceptable, there was another reason for his choice. He had settled on Happy Nest 001 because he believed it was just as good as the original. 001 is also my lucky number, the article quoted him as saying in a private conversation. For me, choosing this domain wasn't a compromise. It was never inferior to the original. If I couldn't even get this one, that's when I might have felt truly discouraged as an entrepreneur. This confirmed for Leo just how important the domain was to the man. $8,000 wasn't going to cut it. The fish was on the hook. Now it was just a matter of reeling him in. After he sent the message, Leo didn't have to wait long for a reply. Your price. Mr. Chen clearly didn't want to be led by the nose. Leo smiled. He was prepared for this. He typed out a number. 300,000. He wasn't afraid of scaring him off. This was roughly what the domain had sold for in his past life. Give or take 30%. But even this price was just the first step in Leo's plan. The message was sent. The other side went silent for a full 3 minutes. Leo waited patiently. He even had time to glance out of the kitchen. He saw his girlfriend, looking undeterred, holding that plate of colorful blackness, seemingly ready to make the poor new pet try again. The parrot in the cage looked like it was about to fall apart. It had even been forced to learn how to kowtow, its round head bobbing up and down like a chicken pecking at grain, accompanied by a pitiful, trembling cry. "Good woman, good woman, good woman, give it to him, give it to him, give it to him." Leo's face darkened. His sympathy for the new family member vanished. That little bastard knows how to deflect. This reasonable really does have a death wish. How reasonable. Just then, another message arrived, pulling his attention back to the matter at hand. Mr. Chung had apparently calmed down. His reply was composed. "I'm here to do business, not to be extorted. If you're not serious, then let's forget it." A classic move, threatening to walk away. For a normal person without inside information, it would be hard to have the confidence to treat a simple domain like a treasure. But for someone who already knew the answer, it wasn't a problem. Leo remained perfectly calm. He wasn't planning on beating around the bush any longer. He typed out a simple message. "It can be cheaper. 100,000 plus 5% of your company. Happy Nest." The message went out. The other side fell into an even longer silence. Leo waited patiently. This was it. He had laid his cards on the table. Now it was up to the other guy to make a move. After another 2 minutes, he heard Claire's voice from the living room. "Are you done yet?" Finally, a reply came through. "Who are you?" That was the first question. The second was a sharp, cold response. "I don't know where you got your information, and I don't care what you know. But if you're looking to take advantage of the situation, I'm not interested." Looking at the harsh words on the screen, Leo smiled and calmly typed his reply. "I'm not taking advantage. Think of it as a helping hand. I'm here to help you, Mr. Chung. Perhaps I can even add a little something to your project. Offer some small suggestions. For example, your masterpiece, the garden grab game." After sending that message, Leo put his phone away and walked out of the kitchen. He sat down on the sofa next to his girlfriend and asked casually, "Is Reasonable still alive?" Claire nodded, glancing at the birdcage on the coffee table. "Yes, just a little bit dead." Leo froze. He looked inside the cage. The monk parakeet was lying stiff and motionless on the floor. "Leo, that's a little bit dead?" "It looks completely dead." Seeing her boyfriend's shocked reaction, Claire pouted and explained, "It's faking. I wanted to try a little more, but it refused. So just play dead." Leo looked closer. Sure enough, he could see the parrot's chest rising and falling evenly. It even cracked open one of its pea-sized eyes to check the situation. When it saw the two humans staring at it, it quickly squeezed its eyes shut again. "What took you so long in the kitchen?" Claire asked. Leo smiled. "Nothing. Just chatting with someone." She nodded. "How did it go?" Leo took out his phone and glanced at it. After who knows what kind of emotional turmoil, Mr. Chung had sent one last message. "Your IP address is local. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., South Bank Cafe. We talk in person." A smile touched Leo's lips. He replied to his girlfriend just as casually, "It went very well." The next day, Sunday, Molly's birthday dinner was scheduled for 6 o'clock at a restaurant downtown. The plan was for the residents of room 205 and room 520 to go together. Leo told Claire he had something to take care of in the city first and would meet up with everyone later. Claire was curious but understanding. Her boyfriend seemed serious about starting his own business, and whether he succeeded or not, she would support him. Before he left, she gave him a kiss on the lips for good luck and added, "It's okay if it doesn't work out. You can always live off me." Leo left, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Bertha Sue really didn't have enough faith in him. He was Leo Hammer Wallace. Was he the kind of man to live off a woman? A man who lived off his wife had no future, his status so low he'd have to cook and serve her tea and wash her feet. Washing her feet. Well, on second thought. As Leo sat in the taxi on his way to the South Bank Cafe, it was 2:40 p.m. Downtown, inside the cafe. The bell on the glass door chimed as a young woman with a gentle, graceful demeanor walked in, carrying an electric keyboard. Her beauty and presence were striking. At any university, she would easily be considered the girl of her department, if not the whole campus. The moment she entered, she drew the admiring gazes of several customers. In a corner of the cafe, at a table with a few other young women, one of them stood up and waved happily. "Lily, over here." At the South Bank Cafe, two pretty young women sat at a corner table by the window. One wore a chic, Chanel-style white jacket and skirt, her hair in soft curls, looking fashionable and sophisticated. The other had a sassy, short bob with a few pink streaks, her energy more vibrant and playful. They sat there, completely in their own world, taking selfies together and attracting admiring glances from other patrons. Birds of a feather flocked together. The third young woman who walked in, the one with the gentle aura, was clearly one of them. The girl with the pink-streaked hair stood up and greeted her warmly. Lily Lou smiled, walked over, and sat down with her two best friends. "Sorry," she said. "Piano practice ran late." Her friends were Sienna Chun, the one in the chic white jacket, and Josie Zhou, the one with the short, colorful hair. Josie pouted. "All you ever do is practice piano. You barely hang out with us anymore. If this keeps up, our friendship is going to fade away." Sienna, propping her chin on her hand, chimed in with a sly smile. "She says it's piano practice, but who knows? Maybe she found a boyfriend and is spending all her time with him. Got a man and forgot her friends, you know." Josie's eyes lit up. "That makes sense." She looked at Lily with eager curiosity. "Spill it. Who is he? As your best friends, we have to vet him for you. See if he's good enough." Lily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Stop spreading rumors. Some best friends you are. Who forgets to even show up for their friend's birthday?" It was just a joke, but the word birthday made the freshman girl of Berkeley's humanities department subconsciously recall certain events from the previous year. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face, and a hint of sadness shadowed her eyes. Her friends didn't notice the subtle shift. Josie immediately started complaining. "Hey, that's not fair. It wasn't our fault. Matt and Chris dragged us to Miami that week. We were on a private yacht every day. We couldn't just come back. Besides, we got you a birthday gift later, didn't we?" Her casual explanation, with its offhand mentions of Miami and private yacht, revealed that these young women came from well-off families and moved in exclusive circles. In fact, both of their families were in business, with fortunes in the tens of millions, similar to Lily's own. In college, they spent their days hopping from one party to another, living glamorous lives. Hearing her friend's complaint, Lily just smiled. Okay, I'm not mad. I forgive you." But Sienna raised an eyebrow, a look of interest on her face. "Hold on. Josie, did you notice? Our dear Lily is changing the subject. She's talking about her birthday, but she never denied having a boyfriend." She drew out the last few words. Josie's eyes widened in realization. "Oh, right. You almost fooled us. Fess up. Have you found a man at college or not?" Both friends stared at Lily, unblinking. Lily couldn't take the scrutiny. "No," she insisted. She paused, a certain young man's face flashing in her mind, and a flicker of sadness crossed her features. "Even if I wanted to, it's not that easy." That one sentence was all Sienna and Josie needed. They both froze, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. "Wait a minute. No way. You're telling me there's a man the great Lily Lou wants but can't get?" Josie rolled up her sleeves. "Okay, you need to tell me everything right now. I want to see what kind of incredible man at Berkeley is so amazing that he could actually turn you down." Her secret thoughts exposed, Lily felt a wave of embarrassment. She waved her hands, trying to appear calm. "It's nothing. I was just talking. Don't jump to conclusions." It was at that exact moment that Leo, having arrived by taxi, walked in. The bell on the glass door chimed. Lily instinctively looked up at the sound. The moment she saw the familiar figure of the young man, her face registered pure, disbelieving shock. She almost jumped out of her seat, a soft gasp escaping her lips. "El Leo." Sienna and Josie were startled by their friend's sudden, dramatic reaction. They followed her gaze and saw the young man who had just entered. Both of their eyes lit up. "Hey, he's kind of cute. Who's that, Lily? Do you know him?" Sienna put together first, her eyes widening. "Don't tell me. That's the guy you're after but couldn't get?" The three young women were seated in a corner by the window. Lily's soft exclamation hadn't been loud enough for Leo to hear as he entered. At that moment, Leo had no idea he was about to have such a coincidental run-in with a classmate at a random downtown cafe. He scanned the room briefly, not paying particular attention to the three women in the corner. Seeing that the person he was scheduled to meet hadn't arrived yet, he found an empty table and sat down. He took out his phone and sent a message to the founder of Happy Nest, letting him know he had arrived. The reply was quick, 3 minutes. Leo put his phone away and waited patiently. Meanwhile, at the table just across the aisle, separated by partition, the three young women could hardly sit still. Even though Lily tried her best to deny it, Sienna and Josie were sharp observers. They had been best friends with Lily for years. They could read her like an open book. So, they knew immediately. "It's really him?" Josie's eyes sparkled, her gossip-loving heart aflame. "Well, what are you waiting for? Let's drag him over here and interrogate him. I'll ask him myself. I want to know what's going on between you two. How could he possibly not be into you?" She made a move to get up. Lily panicked, grabbing her friend's arm and pulling her back down, whispering urgently, "Stop it. It's not what you think. Nothing ever happened between us. He's not interested in me like that." As she said this, Lily couldn't help but remember all her encounters with him last semester, the carefully orchestrated coincidences and calculated invitations she'd extended, only to be met with his bafflingly blunt, almost comical rejections. She subconsciously glanced down at her outfit, a long dress, a thick, tailored trench coat, and heeled leather boots, and smiled wryly. By his standards, this probably still wasn't good enough to qualify her as a meal buddy. Sienna raised an eyebrow, shooting a curious glance over the partition at Leo. Not interested? Then what a coincidence that he just happens to show up at the same cafe, all by himself. Lily froze. She instinctively glanced over at him again, a flicker of curiosity and confusion in her heart. It's strange, coming all the way from campus to a downtown cafe alone. Where's the great Claire Sterling, who's usually attached to his hip? Seeing the way Lily was secretly watching him, her concern plain on her face, Sienna felt her theory was confirmed. She covered her mouth and giggled. Maybe he followed you here, Lily, pretending to be alone to get your attention, faking a chance encounter. Josie's eyes gleamed with excitement. That makes so much sense. See, he's totally into you. He's just too shy to say it. Come on, let's go over there. We'll call him out and see what he does. She tried to get up again. Josie, stop it, Lily hissed, pulling her back down once more. Just then, the bell on the cafe door chimed again. This time, a man in his late 30s walked in. Unaware of the drama unfolding in the corner, Leo looked up at the sound of the bell. He saw the man who had just entered and recognized him immediately. A faint smile touched Leo's lips as he stood up and raised a hand in greeting. The man saw him, and his eyes landed on Leo's face. He was visibly surprised by how young Leo was, but he quickly composed himself and walked over calmly. The buyer and seller of the domain had finally met. Leo extended his hand, a slight smile on his face. Leo Wallace. The man looked at him intently, then shook his hand. David Chung. They released their hands and sat down. For a moment, neither spoke, simply studying each other. The atmosphere grew quiet, almost tense. At the next table, the three young women, including Lily, watched with confusion. Sienna, who had just been so confident in her assessment, was now taken aback. So he wasn't here alone? Who's this guy? Josie was equally baffled. Yeah, is that a relative? It doesn't look like it. They were so formal when they shook hands. It looked like how my dad meets clients for business. Her words sparked a realization in Sienna. She took a closer look at the newcomer, and her expression grew serious. You're right. That man has a powerful presence. I've seen a lot of CEOs and executives at business functions with my dad, and this guy has the same kind of aura. But this assessment only deepened their confusion. If this man truly had such a commanding presence and was someone important, why would he be meeting with what looked like an ordinary college kid, shaking hands so formally? Lily was also stunned, her gaze darting back and forth between the two men. Finally, her eyes settled on Leo, her curiosity growing by the second. What on earth is he doing here today? As the young women watched, Leo was observing the client sitting across from him, comparing the man in person to the information he already had. David Chung, founder of Happy Nest, born in 1972, making him 36 now. He had worked at the National Institute of Nuclear Research, then joined Sina as a senior engineer, director of new products, and deputy general manager of wireless technology. Last year, he was promoted to acting CTO before officially resigning in February of this year to start Happy Nest. In the coming years, he would propel Happy Nest to become the #1 social networking site in the country. He would be named Entrepreneur of the Year, one of the 10 great talents of the nation, a top tech leader. The list of accolades was endless. But right now, the man sitting across from Leo was just an ordinary-looking man with a neat buzz cut, black-framed glasses, and a casual button-down shirt. Only his aura hinted at a quiet authority, a subtle pressure. No one would guess the immense success he was about to achieve. A small smile played on Leo's lips. To him, this man was the first major, big-ticket target on his entrepreneurial blueprint. As Leo was sizing up David Chung was doing the same to him. As Leo and David Chung began their conversation, the young women at the next table strained to listen in. They couldn't make out the specific words, only watched the expressions and mouth movements, trying to guess what was being said. That man looks so serious, Josie whispered. Is he lecturing your old flame, Lily? Maybe he's a professor or something. The term old flame made Lily flustered. Don't be ridiculous. We're his classmates, friends. But she couldn't help glancing over at Leo, a hesitant look on her face. That man, I don't think he's a professor at our school. I've never seen him before. Sienna, however, had already made up her mind. Whoever he is, he looks pretty angry. A mischievous smile played on her lips. Your ordinary friend probably messed up and got himself into trouble. Hearing Leo's new offer, David Chung almost laughed out of sheer anger. He had come prepared, suspecting the kid might have some inside information and would try to demand high price. But he never imagined he would be this audacious, this arrogant. 300,000 plus 8% of the company? Kid, are you underestimating me or overestimating yourself? You think you can extort me, David Chung? Well, this deal is off. You can let that domain of yours rot in your hands. I'm done here. He even made a move to stand up and leave. But Leo remained calm and unhurried. Don't be so quick, Mr. Chung. Like I said, I'm not here to extort you. I'm here to help you. Just listen to what I have to say, and you'll soon realize my price isn't high at all. Chung was already on his feet. He looked down at Leo with a sneer. Help me? How? You're just a college student at Berkeley. He had completely lost interest in continuing the conversation. A word of advice, kid. Keep what you know to yourself. If I hear even a whisper of a leak, I promise you things won't end well for you. He turned to leave, but at that same moment, Leo also stood up. He looked at Chung, still smiling calmly. Don't be hasty, Mr. Chung. Since you're already here, why not sit down and hear me out? A few more sentences, and you might just change your mind. The sheer audacity of his words made Chung want to laugh in his face. But as he met Leo's gaze, calm, confident, completely unfazed, the future founder of Happy Nest found himself hesitating. An inexplicable gut feeling, a premonition, told him that he should give this kid a chance. Perhaps it was a chance for himself as well. That same gut feeling had helped him solve countless problems over the decades. This time, he decided to trust again. Taking a shallow breath, Chung sat back down, his face a cold mask. 1 minute, he bit out. That's all you get. Leo sat down as well, smiling at the man across from him. All right, 1 minute. 1 minute passed quickly. Leo had lowered his voice, making his words inaudible to anyone else. All an observer could see was David Chung breaking into a sweat, a look of shock on his face. Then, another minute passed. Leo continued to speak calmly, his monologue uninterrupted. The future founder of Happy Nest was now drenched in sweat, furiously scribbling in a notebook, his expression shifting from shock to utter disbelief. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. 10. The 1 minute deadline had long since passed. But the man who had set it had completely forgotten his own ultimatum. The stern, intimidating demeanor was gone, replaced by a desperate humility. He was sweating profusely, his pen flying across the page like a student cramming for an exam, terrified of missing a single, crucial detail. If anyone from the tech industry had witnessed this scene, they would have been flabbergasted. Given David Chang's status and experience, even with Happy Nest still in its infancy, he was an absolute titan in his field. When had he ever been so humble, so deferential? And to a college student, no less. At the table by the window, Lily, Sienna, and Josie were speechless. They had no idea what was being said, which only deepened their confusion. Why had the powerful-looking man, who had just been lecturing Leo, suddenly switched roles? Now it looked like Leo was lecturing him, and he was the one nodding and taking frantic notes. Josie was dumbfounded. What's going on? Lily, is this an actor your friend hired? Is he trying to put on a show for you? Lily opened her mouth to argue, but looking at the bizarre scene unfolding before her, she was at a loss for words. 10 minutes flew by. This time, it was Leo who stopped talking. David Chung, still sweating and writing, looked up in alarm when the voice opposite him fell silent. Why'd you stop? Keep going. His desperate, pleading expression was almost comical. Leo took a sip of water and smiled at him. I said I'd only talk for a minute. I went over. My apologies. David Chung was speechless. For a moment, a herd of alpacas stampeded through his mind. Is this karma coming back to bite me so quickly? He couldn't believe it. He had only sat down to humor a gut feeling, to see what nonsense this kid would spout. $300,000, plus 8% of Happy Nest's original shares. That was the small return Leo demanded from David Chung. Of course, the Happy Nest 001 domain alone wasn't worth that astronomical price. Even the original Happy Nest .com domain wouldn't have been enough to pry a single share of the company from Cheng's hands. In reality, the domain was just an accessory. The true centerpiece of today's deal, as both Leo and David Chung well knew, was the content of the 10-minute monologue that had left Chung sweating, excited, and furiously taking notes. Every word was a pearl of wisdom, worth its weight in gold. Initially, Chung had found Leo's terms utterly absurd, almost walking out on the spot. But now, looking at the densely packed pages of his notebook, he felt it was worth every penny and more. However, even as the founder, he couldn't make unilateral decisions about company shares. Chung told Leo he needed to discuss it with his partners, but promised a swift reply. His tone was solemn and sincere, with no hint of evasion. In fact, he seemed terrified that Leo might think he was being brushed off. On the spot, Mr. Chung asked for Leo's bank account number, made a quick call, and transferred $300,000 to him as a deposit, a sign of his sincerity. As he stood to leave, Chung gripped Leo's hand tightly. "Don't worry, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I, David Chung, am a man of my word." The first two sentences were delivered with force and conviction, but in the next moment his tone shifted completely. The imposing, middle-aged man suddenly looked anxious and pleading. "So, the stuff you didn't finish telling me. You won't forget, right?" Leo smiled. "No problem. I can put together a document for you, with a complete, detailed plan. It might not be perfect, just for your reference. We can discuss it further." His words were modest, but Cheng's face lit up with excitement as he nodded eagerly. A wave of emotion washed over him. "Not perfect. For reference? Discuss it further? My ass. My entire team of a dozen engineers and strategists couldn't come up with a plan half as good as this. We're still fumbling around with version 1.0, and this kid is already cruising in version 3.0. No, he's probably holding back versions 4.0 and 5.0. He's practically building a rocket to the moon." They exchanged contact information. Before he left, Chung patted his chest emphatically, practically swearing on his life. "Seriously, don't worry. I'll handle this as fast as I can." Then with one last earnest plea, he added, Please just hold on to that plan. Don't give it to anyone else." Leo, amused, had to reassure him several times before Mr. Chung finally, reluctantly, departed. As he walked out of the cafe, he kept looking back, his expression full of longing, like a lover in a tragic farewell scene. Watching him go, a real smile finally broke across Leo's face, and the tension left his body. During the negotiation, he had felt the pressure from the Happiness founder's powerful aura. Chung had tried to regain control several times. If Leo had shown even a hint of weakness, the outcome would have been very different. Fortunately, he had come prepared, armed with a wealth of information about his opponent and a trump card Chung simply couldn't refuse. He had controlled the tempo from start to finish, and in the end, he had achieved his goal. $300,000 already in his account. The shares weren't finalized yet, but judging by Cheng's attitude, it was practically a done deal. The thought of a six-figure sum sitting in his bank account filled him with joy. It had taken him over half a year in this new life to earn his first real money. By reborn protagonist standards, that was probably pathetic. But it felt good. Money was a man's confidence. With this, he wouldn't have to worry about living off a woman anymore. He could stand tall. He wouldn't have to serve Bertha Sue tea. He'd only have to wash her feet 13 times a day. His mind raced with happy, ridiculous plans, imagining countless ways to appreciate his girlfriend's perfect feet. Just as Leo was about to get up and leave, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Leo." He turned instinctively and was surprised to see a familiar, graceful figure. "Huh, Lily Lou?" Seeing Leo about to leave, Lily Lou, from her corner table, had finally worked up the nerve to call out to him. Leo was surprised to see the it girl of Berkeley's humanities department. "You're here too." Lily took a shallow breath to calm her nerves, then walked over, a smile on her face. "Yeah, I'm here with my friends." What a coincidence. Leo's gaze naturally drifted past her to the two other young women, both fashionably dressed and attractive. They're both pretty impressive looking, he thought to himself. Josie and Sienna walked over, smiling as they greeted him. Their eyes scanned him from head to toe, as if trying to uncover some hidden secret. "You're Leo, right?" Josie asked, deliberately drawing out her words. "So you're Lily's ordinary friend?" Lily shot her friend a flustered, warning look, but Leo just nodded, admitting it freely. "Yeah, we're in the same department. We rehearsed for the welcome gala together in the arts department, so we ran into each other a lot." Sienna's lips curved into a sly smile. "Is that so? You ran into each other a lot. Sounds like you two were fated to meet. Huh? Did these coincidences ever lead to a date, maybe a meal?" Her tone was teasing, playful, as if she knew everything. She was trying to fluster Leo, but her words had the opposite effect on Lily, who felt increasingly uncomfortable. Her friends didn't know the truth. They naturally assumed the boy had orchestrated all these chance encounters. Little did they know, she was the one who had painstakingly planned all of them, and failed every single time.